Chapter 161, Sumu guessed Wang Yu's secret. The two men had an unpleasant meal. Zhou Tingjian did not achieve his desired goal if Wang Yu and Sumu showed any intimacy. Then he could have made trouble on the spot, directly exposing Wang Yu's true face, and then taken the opportunity to beat him up. But from beginning to end, he saw Sumu helping Wang Yu pick food from time to time, and the latter looked disgusted. Not to mention the little girl he brought along, who was afraid that the chopsticks were too heavy and would tire Wang Yu out, so he served him like his own father was in the hospital. After more than an hour, this dinner, which seemed inexplicable to Wang Yu, was over. As he was leaving, he walked over to Zhou Tingjian's side and asked softly, "Brother, do you really not need my help?" Zhou Tingjian looked at Wang Yu with mixed feelings in his eyes. He wanted to say something, but Wang Yu didn't have any intentions towards Sumu, and the fact that he had 3 women was also someone else's private business. The two were not familiar with each other, and Wang Yu was still his sister's rescuer. No matter what, he couldn't say anything, so he could only try to stay away from him as much as possible. "No need. Sister Mumu said she didn't like me, and I don't want to cling to her." After saying this, Zhou Tingjian's eyes hardened, and he patted Wang Yu on the shoulder and said, "Your medical skills are very good, and there are some things that are more important than love. I hope you can do good for society." Holy cow! Wang Yu felt as if he was seeing the figure of his elementary school teacher of ideological and moral education on the podium. The chicken soup was well cooked. After leaving the restaurant, Wang Yu greeted Sweetie and left directly. Nan Nan then pulled Sumu to follow her. Zhou Tingjian watched the 2 girls leave, turned resolutely and returned to the army, saying goodbye to his loved ones and burying his love. Just as he had said earlier, some things are indeed much more important than love. Perhaps the girls in the army are more suitable for him. "Mumu, do you really like Wang Yu?" Nan Nan looked at her best friend and asked again to make sure. "Well, what's wrong?" Sumu gathered her dark hair and casually replied. "What's wrong? Don't you know that Wang Yu is a scumbag?" Hearing her best friend's reply, Nan Nan raised her voice quite a bit, trying to save Sumu from trouble. "Scumbag? I was about to say that." Sumu thought for a moment and then continued. "I don't think so. After all, there are some things that he doesn't take the initiative." Regarding the relationship between Sun Qian and Wang Yu, Sumu had heard some rumors, which were even more secretive. It seems that the 3rd son of the Sun family accidentally said a few words after drinking too much one time. When Sun Ning was chatting with her daughter, she inadvertently told her as a joke. "What are you talking about? Do you know that Wang Yu has 3 girlfriends?" "Yes, I do. The young plum from the village had her wedding last month, and the Sun family's eldest daughter also had her wedding last month. There's also someone surnamed Wan, I met him some time ago," Sumu said nonchalantly. Nan Nan was stunned by Sumu's words. "You already know and you're still going after him? Are you crazy?" "Oh yeah, the little girl who came today is probably going to be the 4th soon." Thinking about this, Sumu clenched his fists, and really wanted to go and beat Wang Yu up, and ask him what it was about him that he didn't like, whether it was that his face wasn't pretty enough, or his body wasn't good enough. "Mumu, are you being drugged? This guy has so many women, and you still like him?" Nan Nan was a little confused. "Okay, you asked, there are some things I can't explain to you." There are some things that Sumu was not very sure about, and now he is even less bothered to tell Nan Nan so much. He reclined the seat and half lay on the passenger seat. Sumu closed his eyes and slowly recalled the first time he saw Wen Xian. Her skin was like that of a young girl. He had originally thought she was a young girl in her early 20s, but after learning that Wen Xian was already 45, Sumu had been carefully observing the women who had contact with Wang Yu. Soon she met Sun Qian, who was 42, and was just as young and beautiful, radiating youthful vitality. As for Yuan, she is obviously 26 years old, but the feeling of being the little sister next door makes Sumu think she is 16 at first glance. Later, when Wang Yu came to Shiguan Hospital, Sumu felt that her thoughts were correct. So many women have become much younger after Wang Yu's treatment, but knowing the situation of Wen Xian and Sun Qian, she knows even better that this guy definitely has secrets. He has kept all the good things for his own woman. Sumu, who had a good impression of Wang Yu, was not willing to just quit like this. After discovering the benefits Wang Yu has for women, she is even less willing to quit. She will turn 30 next year, and she can clearly feel that time has left some traces on her face. Thinking that Wen Xin and Sun Qian can both ignore each other's existence, can't this prove that Wang Yu really has a way to keep women young forever? Thinking about this, Sumu strengthened her resolve. She could no longer tell whether she liked Wang Yu or whether she wanted to get him. Anyway, a woman would do anything to stay young and beautiful, and it would be worth it. Nan, I want to ask you a question, and I want you to answer it well. Sumu opened her eyes and looked at her best friend. The two were about the same age, but she looked much older than Sumu. After all, she was exposed to the elements every day like a man, and if she didn't have a good foundation, she would probably have to say goodbye to being beautiful now. What's the question? If you knew a way to keep yourself young forever, what would you pay? Needless to ask, as long as you don't kill people, start fires, or break the law, I'd give anything. Nan said without a second thought, and then asked Sumu curiously. What's wrong, suddenly asking this? It's like you have a way. Yes. Sumu thought about it for a moment and admitted. Upon hearing this, Nan immediately pulled over, turned on the lights, and started to carefully examine Sumu's face. Cut it out. I thought it was real, but you're still acting like that. With that, she started the car and continued driving home. What she didn't know was that although Sumu knew that this had something to do with Wang Yu, she hadn't benefited from Wang Yu, so it seemed the same as before. But when Sumu takes down Wang Yu and reappears in Nan's sight, the beautiful policewoman will remember the things Sumu said to her in the car today. Over here, after Wang Yu and Tian left, they came to the villa they just bought today. The interior is nicely decorated, and the furniture and appliances are also complete. In the afternoon, Mu Xinjin went shopping and bought some bedding and some daily toiletries. She spent a few hours here, and every room made her linger, but she didn't stay the night. When it was time to eat, she called Sweetie and learned that her daughter was with Wang Yu, and Mu Xinjin stayed at the villa for another hour or so before returning to the temporary residence that Wang Yu had rented for them. Chapter 162. When Kay reports on minor issues. Arriving on the third floor of the villa, she looked at the large circular soft couch in front of her. Sweetie, who was hugging a pillow and quilt, blushed, knowing what was about to happen. Wang Yu, on the other hand, looked at the little nurse in front of him with a smile on his face. Counting Sweetie, she was the second girl he had actively pursued. It was really hard to predict the world. Sometimes being too good means that it's really not difficult to chase after girls. Thinking about the guys in his dorm room in college, when they were pursuing the goddesses of their hearts, they were either dying to do it or they just couldn't get it done. Brother Yu, it's all set. Tian lowered her head and spoke in a whisper. Then, let's sleep. That night, this Wang Yu fellow slept very well. Wen Zhong, who had been transferred to the police station, was not at all comfortable, but the stone in his heart had finally been lifted. That night, he got in touch with his eldest brother, briefly explained what had happened, and then obediently stayed in the detention center. Wen Zhong wasn't very worried about what would happen next. After all, his family's abilities could still settle things like this. Moreover, the reason he gave was very convincing. A simple investigation would make it clear. Although that wasn't the truth, who could know for sure? After the eldest Wen family member hung up the phone, he used his connections to prepare to get his third younger brother out. He quickly drew a line between himself and the 5 kidnappers. However, Wen Zhong was after all too deeply involved in this matter, and it would be quite difficult to get him out. It was hard to say, but he might have to spend some time in prison. Whether it's his own father or Wen Xian's father, if they knew his thoughts, then he would basically be cutting himself off from the Wen family. After thinking for a long time, Wen Kai finally made up his mind. Since his brothers could not take over the fat piece of meat that is the Wen group, they would seek some benefit from this matter. And maybe they could even get a bigger reward through this matter. Regarding Wen Xian's past, Wen Kai had inadvertently learned a little. Although the second master of the Wen family provided a lot of help when the Wen group was developing, Wen Kai could feel that another force was protecting Wen Xian. The plans implemented by those people and organizations that were preparing to target the Wen group often came to an end halfway through, and then they were either arrested or investigated. That force was hiding in the dark, and Wen Xian had never noticed it at all, but Wen Kai knew very well. After all, when a group develops to a certain scale, there will be a lot of people who want to divide up the benefits, and these people cannot be bribed with money. However, since the rise of the Wen group to its current size, no one has ever dared to take advantage of it. Wen Kai was very curious about this, so he investigated a bit, but just after he had taken action, he received a phone call. The other party simply gave a brief explanation, which made him break out in a cold sweat. From that moment on, he knew that Wen was backed by a giant that was several times more terrifying than the Wen family in Kyoto. Thinking about this, Wen Kai dialed a number that he had been saving for nearly 10 years. Hello, who is this? This is Wen's second son. I have something to tell you about my cousin Xin. Wen K told the person everything he knew about Xin and Wang Yu. Okay, I understand, I will report to the boss. After listening, the person hung up without saying anything else. After hanging up with Wen K, the person quickly knocked on a room door. After entering, he walked up to a middle-aged man who was working and respectfully said, "Boss, something happened with Ms. Wen." The middle-aged man, who was looking through some documents, immediately stopped what he was doing and recalled the phone call from 6 months ago. It seemed that she had not contacted him again for a long time. What about her? Boss, Miss Wen is pregnant, 6 months pregnant. The news came from the Wen family in Kyoto. As soon as the words fell, the middle-aged man sat there as if he had been frozen, but a strong sense of hostility welled up within him. There was silence for several minutes, and the atmosphere in the room was so oppressive that the person standing there was careful even with their breathing. It had been many years, and this was only the second time he had seen the boss like this, the last time because of a phone call from Miss Wen, and this time because of Miss Wen's business. He knew the importance of Miss Wen to the boss. Over the years, he had followed the boss's orders and protected the Wen group, interrupting the hands of many people who wanted to reach out. Find out. After saying that, the middle-aged man acted as if nothing had happened, and then got back to his work. The next morning, Wang Yu gave Tian a day off and rushed to the hospital to work alone. Tian wanted to insist on going with him, but her body had been tossed around so much that she simply couldn't get up. After being massaged by Wang Yu, she fell back asleep. Wang Yu called Mu Jinjin and asked her to come over and take care of Tian before leaving. As soon as he arrived at the hospital outpatient clinic, he saw Sumu waiting there. Wang Yu couldn't help but feel a headache. This girl is really persistent. Brother Yu, good morning. Sumu's eyes lit up when she saw Wang Yu, and she greeted him happily, completely forgetting about the incident yesterday when she was so angry with him. Good morning, Mu. Nan is here too. Wang Yu came over with a stiff upper lip, and after greeting them, he noticed that Sumu's best friend was standing next to her. When they entered the consultation room, Wang Yu looked at the two girls who had followed him in and asked curiously, "Is there something the matter?" "Well, there is something I want you to help with." Sumu sat down and looked at Wang Yu with a gentle expression on her face. "Tell me what it is, but I can't promise I can help." Wang Yu also didn't dare to make any promises like before when he heard her voice. "Don't worry, you can definitely help." "Okay, tell me." "Well, Nan wants to get an appointment with you for some physical conditioning, but your appointments are booked until next year. I asked Dean Han for help, but he told me to come to you, so I brought Nan here." Sumu slept with Nan last night, and the two women talked a lot, but the topic basically revolved around Wang Yu. When Nan heard that Wang Yu could use massage and conditioning to make a woman's body feel years younger, she didn't quite believe it, but it aroused her great interest. In the morning, they got up together and begged Sumu to get an appointment with Wang Yu, wanting to experience it for themselves. But when they heard Sumu say that an appointment costs 2 million, Nan was stunned. Before she could react, Sumu added that the queue for an appointment had already stretched to next year, which immediately dropped Nan's jaw. She couldn't help but believe in Wang Yu's methods a little, so she didn't go to work today, begging Sumu to bring her here and asking Wang Yu to give her a massage too. Chapter 163 Nan, the freeloader. Of course, Sumu had never contacted Dean Han, and Nan had no intention of paying. The beautiful policewoman wanted to get a free massage. Although her family was well off, she could not afford to pay 2 million. Nan looked at Wang Yu with some embarrassment. She felt that what she was doing was a bit unfair. After all, there was a long queue of people waiting to pay. Not only did she jump the queue, she was not even prepared to pay. Nan, who had never taken advantage of others, felt a bit awkward. After listening to Sumu's words, Wang Yu let out a sigh of relief. He didn't mind helping Nan get in shape. After all, it was only a matter of 20 minutes for him, and he didn't want Nan to pay. As long as Sumu didn't come back to bother him, it was fine. Okay, no problem. We can start now. Anyway, I don't have anything else to do this morning except read, so I'm going to get the job done and send Sumu away. Wang Yu gestured for Nan to follow him in. Nan, go ahead, I'll be watching you. Sumu pushed Nan, who was daydreaming, and said, "Oh, okay, thank you, Dr. Wang." The beautiful policewoman didn't expect Wang Yu to agree so easily. This is worth 2 million yuan. Is Wang Yu giving Sumu face like this? Could it be that the other party really has a good impression of her best friend? Thinking this, Nan Nan followed Wang Yu into the room, and after closing the door, Wang Yu gestured for Nan Nan to lie on the bed in the middle. Then, putting on gloves, he began his massage. Sumu stood in the doorway watching, inexplicably feeling a little jealous of Wang Yu and Nan Nan. Women are really unpredictable. Watching Nan Nan, her face flushed like a big apple under Wang Yu's massage, she let out moans that made people blush. Sumu felt as if she had hit her own foot with a stone. After all, she had never been so intimate with Wang Yu before. Nan Nan, on the other hand, was dying of jealousy. Her best friend's crush was giving her a massage, and her best friend was watching. She was making those noises every now and then, which was torture, but Wang Yu's massage was really comfortable, and she didn't want to refuse at all. Wang Yu, on the other hand, was completely unresponsive. He had experienced it all before. He had massaged hundreds of women recently, and at first he felt a bit awkward, but then he got used to it. Some women were even more explicit than Nan Nan during the massage, and it wasn't even seductive, it was obvious that they were trying to seduce. But Wang Yu was never moved, as if he couldn't hear them, he just quietly carried on with his work. Nan Nan's massage lasted for more than 40 minutes. It wasn't that Wang Yu wanted to take advantage of her, but she had just been discharged from the hospital not long ago, and although she had been taking medicine, her body had not yet recovered. Since she was already lying down, he took the opportunity to give her a more detailed massage treatment, and then prescribed a beauty and nourishing formula for her to pick up the medicine. Nan Nan took the prescription, said thank you, and then blushed as she left her best friend behind and ran away quickly. She had actually had a physiological reaction just now, and although no one had noticed, she didn't want to be here for even a second. Sumu looked at Wang Yu, who had taken off his gloves and was getting ready to go out, and stopped him directly. "Brother Wang, I also want to try your massage." Wang Yu looked at Sumu's sparkling eyes and immediately wanted to refuse. He knew a long time ago that he would definitely not be able to resist the temptation of a beautiful doctor. At this time, there were only the two of them inside, and if something happened, he would really be a beast. "Sumu, shall we do this some other day? Tian didn't come today, and I still have a lot of work to do. If there's any work, I can help you." Sumu obviously would not let go of Wang Yu, and her bright eyes stared at him directly. Wang Yu felt a bit like shooting himself in the foot. After all, at this time, he had nothing to do. Except for spending an hour or two a day diagnosing and treating 5 patients, he didn't have to do anything else. At this time, when Sumu asked him, he didn't know how to answer. Looking at the beautiful doctor in front of him, Wang Yu suppressed the impulse in his heart and said, "No, Mumu, you go and see patients. Everyone is busy, so I don't want to trouble you. I'm off today, so I'm not busy at all." Sumu said this and then closed the door, which she locked behind her. "Brother Yu, I want to learn massage from you. Will you teach me?" With that, Sumu took off her white coat, and her curvy figure was revealed to Wang Yu. Today Sumu was wearing a completely different style than usual, a short pink t-shirt that showed off her slender, snow-white waist, and a short black skirt that stopped a few centimeters above her knees, revealing her long, round thighs. Wang Yu looked at the completely transformed beautiful doctor, his Adam's apple bobbing up and down, and wanted to just open the door and leave, but his body was motionless. "Mumu, this is very dangerous, are you sure you want to do this?" Wang Yu was about to warn Sumu one last time. After all, he knew he couldn't withstand such a test. "Brother Yu, I have shown you all the medical books are family treasures, so how can you refuse to teach me something?" Sumu knew exactly what Wang Yu meant, but she changed the subject to her learning Wang Yu's medical skills. "Fine, if you're not afraid, what am I afraid of? Lie down, I'll teach you how to massage." With that, Wang Yu turned around and prepared to put on his gloves again. "Brother Yu, you don't need to wear gloves, I won't be able to see your technique clearly." Sumu's face also turned red as she spoke, and Wang Yu could not help but understand her true intentions. After saying that, Sumu obediently lay on the bed, waiting for Wang Yu's massage. Wang Yu was also a man of action, and directly threw the gloves he had brought over to the side, then turned around and looked at the picture of rolling hills in front of him, silently saying to himself, "I can't be worse than an animal." Sumu, as a doctor, pays great attention to her health. After Wang Yu's examination, he didn't find many minor problems, and she is considered the healthiest woman he has ever met. However, just because there are not many problems doesn't mean there aren't any. Long-term medical work has caused Sumu to have some minor cervical spine problems, as well as the common problem of malnutrition among women who pay attention to their figures. These are not major problems for Wang Yu, but in a few minutes, Wang Yu completed the treatment. But he did not stop his hands, carefully examining every inch of Sumu's body. It was as if she had some kind of skin disease, and Wang Yu was examining it very carefully. Brother Yu. Sumu whispered softly. Numo, what's wrong? Wang Yu's breathing was a bit rapid, probably a bit tired from the massage. Brother Yu, I've learned a bit, why don't I try giving you a massage? Sumu said in a low voice with a blush on her face. At this time, she didn't know that the thing she was looking forward to was about to happen, and why she couldn't help but feel nervous. Chapter 164. Wang Yu is worse than an animal. A few minutes later, Wang Yu opened the door and quickly ran out, his expression tense and agitated, as if there was a man-eating tiger in the room. You're worse than an animal, man. A cry of anguish, the tone of her voice contained a sea of resentment. Rushing to the hospital entrance in one breath, Wang Yu sat on a stone bench by the roadside, gasping heavily. It was close. He almost fell for this female doctor. But a single sentence from Sumu made Wang Yu instantly lose interest and leave directly. In fact, it's not that Wang Yu is inferior to an animal, the key is that Sumu wants too much. Sumu gave Wang Yu a massage for less than a minute, and the temperature in the room immediately rose. Just at the critical moment, the female doctor took Wang Yu's hand and threatened gently. Brother Yu, Mumu can satisfy any of your needs, but can you and I get a marriage certificate? If this had been said a few months ago, Wang Yu would have dared to agree without hesitation, but now he felt that it was unlikely. This female doctor really dares to think, if they really get a certificate, is the next step to get rid of the cute Tian first, and then gradually break down Wen Xian, Sun Xian, and Yuan. Although it is unlikely that things will go this far, one can never be too careful. Everyone has their own little plan, and Wang Yu certainly does too. 99% of normal men, if they were to ask themselves honestly, and if they were in a position to do so, and if their wives supported them, would dare swear to the heavens that they don't have a bold idea in their hearts. And Wang Yu is of course a very normal man, so he also has a dream. Wang Yu dares not agree to Su Mu's condition. After all, he is a university graduate and understands the law. There are too many restrictions after getting a marriage certificate, and it's hard to do a lot of things. The girls have discussed it. Next year, when Xin's baby is due, and the two of them will get a marriage certificate and register the baby. Then, when Sun Qian's baby is due, they will divorce and register with Qian. In this way, the household registration issues for the 4 children can be easily resolved. Now, if Sumu gets in the way, Wen Xin and Sun Qian will definitely bite him to death. Wang Yu sat on a stone bench, smoking a cigarette, and carefully analyzed his current situation. Wen Xin, Sun Qian, Yuan and the newly joined Tian, for beautiful women with their own styles. Although Sumu is also very good, 1 versus 4 is a complete loss. After all, the teacher said that if you can't do a multiple choice question, just pick the longest option. As for what to do next, Wang Yu didn't know. After all, in today's society, normal physical contact can't do anything, and if it's consensual, there's no cheating a woman's feelings. Moreover, after being betrayed by Chen Yuting, Wang Yu simply wouldn't believe in any bullshit about love. Whether it's Wen Xian or Sun Qian, whether they took the initiative or were passive, the 2 women were taking advantage of the situation after they followed Wang Yu. Wen Xian's body was in good condition thanks to Wang Yu's conditioning, and her daughter Wan's illness was also cured thanks to Wang Yu's treatment. As for Sun Qian, if it weren't for Wang Yu's appearance, she would probably have gone from having 2 lovers to being single. Not to mention the 2 women's age in their 40s, and the huge benefits they have received from Wang Yu, who is in possession of the Xian Yuan royal woman's secret. As for Yuan, Wang Yu feels more indebted to her and loves her dearly. Although it is not his fault that the girl has been secretly in love with him and has been waiting for him for nearly 10 years. She is a pure, beautiful girl who is warm-hearted and obedient, and they have grown up together since childhood. Wang Yu feels that if he doesn't accept her, he will be struck by lightning. Besides, the girl has already teamed up with someone else to get him, so if he refuses, he might as well exchange the Xian Yuan imperial technique for the sunflower manual. As for Tian, there is nothing to say. The women in the family have expressed their support, and Tian has agreed. If there is any hesitation, it would really be worse than an animal. As for Sumu's situation, Wang Yu is prepared to communicate with his family first. If they object, there is nothing he can say, and he will just stay away in the future. They are hanging around in front of him day after day. Even if the older Wang Yu can hold back, the younger Wang Yu will rebel sooner or later. If that doesn't work, after the integration of the Marian hospital is complete, I'll just go work there myself and stay away from her. Just as Wang Yu was crouching in the doorway, thinking nonsense, Director Lin of the gynecology department called him. Dr. Wang, we have a pregnant woman in critical condition here. Can you come over? You can call Director Su, she's at the hospital right now. Wang Yu had a brainstorm and was going to find something for Su Mu to do, otherwise he wouldn't be able to make his afternoon shift. Director Su had already arrived, but after looking at it, she said she wasn't very confident and asked me to contact you. Sure enough, men's hearts and minds are never as good as women's. Although Wang Yu didn't really believe Su Mu's words, it was still better to go and take a look. After all, it's better to be safe than sorry in these kinds of situations. After throwing away the cigarette butt, Wang Yu rushed to the gynecology department of Shuguang Hospital. Upon arrival, he saw Director Lin and Su Mu discussing something while walking, holding a few films. Wang Yu went straight up to them and asked, "What's the situation?" Mumu isn't even confident. Wang Yu and Su Mu had been studying and discussing together for more than a month, and she had a deep understanding of her medical skills. Just now, she thought that Su Mu had called her over for nothing, but seeing the serious expressions on the two of them, Wang Yu felt that it must be true, that Su Mu really wasn't very confident. "Dr. Wang. Hurry, let's go to the operating room together. The condition of the injured person is very dangerous, and she could miscarry at any time." Su Mu, who had been absorbed in her work, was completely without the charm she had just now, and she had resumed her form as the iceberg female doctor. "Dr. Wang, the injured person is 53 years old and 18 weeks pregnant." Director Lin kept introducing this situation of the injured person to Wang Yu as they walked, and the more Wang Yu listened, the more wrong it sounded. Pregnant women aged 53 are not common, at least Wang Yu had only heard about them online, and had never seen one in real life. This woman's husband is really something. I feel like he can compete with the god of childbirth himself. Around the corner, a familiar figure came rushing towards them. "Doctor, how is my wife? You must save her and the baby in her belly. I have only one son in this generation of the Lu family, you must save her." Lu Baoqiang begged with tears in his eyes, and in his heart, he wished he could slap himself. After this guy was crushed and bankrupted by Chen Chusheng, his net worth of hundreds of millions shrank to just a few million. But Li Yuzhen gave him a son, and Lu Baoqiang's mood was not greatly affected. As for his daughter, Chen Yuding, he gave up trying to contact her after several failed attempts. After all, they didn't have much affection for each other, and she was a daughter, which was not as important as the son due to be born next year. When he first learned that Li Yuzhen was pregnant, Lu Baoxian was so excited that he became like a eunuch in the palace, serving her like an empress. However, after a long time, Lu Baoxian had an old problem, and he wondered if his health had improved since he was able to get Li Yuzhen pregnant. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that this was very likely, otherwise Li Yuzhen would not have gotten pregnant. In fact, there was some truth to what he was thinking. After all, how could a man in his 50s not have a little confidence if he could still get a woman pregnant? Chapter 165, Chen Chusheng takes 10 beauties for a prenatal checkup. Some time ago, Chen Chusheng's affair of supporting 10 college students and getting them pregnant was the talk of the town, which almost made Lu Baoxiang, who had previously cursed Chen Chusheng as a dead end, die of anger. You have to know that the only ridicule he could ever dish out in his life was in the area of his wife and children. Let's not talk about his wife, but the fact that this guy can support 10 young and beautiful college students, but in the area of children, Lu Baoxiang, who used to win, has been completely crushed. 2 versus 10. Who lost and who won is clear at a glance. Lu Baoxiang really wants to follow suit, but his strength doesn't allow it. Although he was angry and clenched his teeth, Chen Chusheng's story inspired him. Although he didn't have as much money as before, he still had a few million in his hands. Forget about 10, just 1 is fine, right? Beautiful college students spend a lot of money, and I can find a low-level one to satisfy their needs. Then Lu Baoxiang, who hadn't touched a woman for more than 3 months, found a very strong reason for himself. He was duty-bound to carry on the Lu family line. Then he spent more than 300,000 yuan to maintain a divorced young woman in her 20s, Ma Rongrong. Although she wasn't very pretty, her skin was very white and delicate, and it felt like fine jade when touched. What's more, Ma Rongrong was very satisfying in one way: she had given birth to a child before the divorce, which proved that there was nothing wrong with her body. After the two met twice and negotiated the price, Lu Baoxiang began to work hard to strengthen the Lu family's offspring. Unfortunately, the good times didn't last long. Lu Baoxiang and Ma Rongrong hadn't even been together a month before they were cornered in a hotel by Li Yuzhen. The scene was incredibly exciting. Lu Baoxiang threw a small Lu and protected Ma Rongrong, who was half naked. During the scuffle, Li Yuzhen was pushed to the ground by an infuriated Ma Rongrong, and her stomach happened to hit the armrest of the hotel's all-purpose chair. Li Yuzhen felt a sharp pain, and then blood started to flow down her pant leg. Seeing that something had happened, Lu Baoxian quickly got dressed and asked a hotel attendant to help him take Li Yuzhen to Shiguan Hospital. Ma Rongrong, meanwhile, quickly disappeared after getting dressed, too afraid to follow. When gynecologist Lin took over the case, Li Yuzhen was already unconscious. She was in her 50s, and the double blow to her mind and body had left her in a very dangerous condition. Sumu, who had received a call for help, rushed over to learn about Li Yuzhen's physical condition. After that, he was confident that he could save the adult, but the child could only be said to be at the mercy of fate. As a doctor, he would of course not give up if there was even a slight chance. The two people who had almost accidentally shot each other gathered together again. Wang Yu sighed when he saw Lu Baoxiang in front of him, thinking that he was some kind of master who could rival his own child delivering supernatural powers. It turned out to be this old guy, which was not surprising. Just as Lu Baoxiang was pleading, there was a commotion of footsteps in the corridor, and from the sound it seemed there were quite a few people. Wang Yu looked forward and was immediately stunned. Chen Chusheng was carrying 10 beautiful women and striding over majestically. The 10 young women each had their own characteristics, and they attracted the attention of the doctors, nurses, patients and their family members who passed by. "Hey, this isn't Lu, why is he in the hospital?" Seeing Lu Baoxiang, Chen Chusheng immediately walked over excitedly. Lu Baoxiang looked back and his eyes could spit fire, but the two muscular hunks over 1 meter 9 standing behind Chen Chusheng made him follow the principle of forbearing for a while to calm the storm. But Chen Chusheng obviously didn't want to let go of this guy, and walked a few steps forward, patting Lu Baoxiang on the shoulder and said with concern, "Brother Lu, looking at your expression, someone in your family has had an accident. Tell me so that I can cheer up." Lu Baoxiang could not care about Chen Chusheng's provocative words at the moment. At this time, he was only concerned about Li Yuzhen's physical condition, which is to say, he was only concerned about the child in Li Yuzhen's belly. "Doctor, please, you must save my child. Our hospital will do its best for every patient." These two are our hospital's Director Su and Chief Specialist Dr. Wang. They will do their best to ensure the safety of the mother and child. Director Lin gently comforted Lu Baoxiang. She had seen too many family members of patients in this situation and understood their feelings. Sumu felt very sorry for the old man in front of him, but his own abilities were limited and he could not guarantee that the child would survive. He turned his head and looked at Wang Yu beside him. Perhaps this man could work a miracle. Director Lin's introduction made the two old men pay attention to Sumu and Wang Yu. As they were going into the operating room, they were both wearing masks and hats, and were quite well wrapped up. Lu Baoxiang and Wang Yu had not met several times and did not recognize each other, and immediately pleaded with the two men again. However, Chen Chusheng recognized Wang Yu at first glance. He originally wanted to mock him a little, but immediately came over and whispered to Wang Yu, "Inside is the mother of Chen Yuding. Do you really want to save her?" Chen Chusheng secretly investigated Wang Yu for a period of time. Although he was not sure why he suddenly became a doctor, the more he investigated Wang Yu's medical skills, the more surprised he became. Especially after his own women each got pregnant, he was even more amazed. At present, he was really afraid that Wang Yu would save the child in Li Yuzhen's stomach again. "Uncle Chen, did you do this?" Chen Chusheng's words aroused Wang Yu's suspicion. He admired this old man in his heart, for he was really ruthless. It was right to say yes, but it was also right to say no. Wang Yu was a little unable to understand Chen Chusheng's words, and his eyes were full of curiosity. "What do you mean?" Wang Yu was very interested at this point, but as for entering the operating room, knowing who was lying inside, Wang Yu felt that Director Lin's level was enough, and Sumu going in was redundant. As for him, he was completely uninterested. To be honest, if Chen Chusheng were not Chen Yuding's real father, Wang Yu would never have helped him pass on his lineage, even if he were beaten to death. Although Li Yuzhen had not targeted Wang Yu, don't expect Wang Yu to be a saint and save the enemy's younger brother. This is actually very simple. Even if Lu Baoxiang goes bankrupt, he can't control his own flesh and blood. Not long ago, he had another woman on the side while still married to Li Yuzhen. Is it that exciting? Does it feel like I'm good again? Wang Yu secretly gasped in his heart. As an ex-husband, how could I bear to see my ex-wife suffer? I just had someone follow and investigate Lu Baoxiang, and gave Li Yuzhen the information when they were in the hotel room. Wang Yu listened to Chen Chusheng's words and felt that the old guy was very bad. What bullshit caring about his ex-wife. Li Yuzhen lying in was the result of his care. As for what happened afterwards, I had nothing to do with it at all, it was all caused by Lu Baoxiang's own indiscretion. After finishing speaking, Chen Chusheng waved his hand and said to Shimmy behind him, "You go for the antenatal checkup first, don't stand there." Upon hearing Chen Chusheng's words, Shimmy immediately responded, "Yes, boss." A more formal reply. "Uncle Chen, I'll be right back. This is probably Lori's personality. Choo-choo, after the prenatal checkup, she wants you to accompany her to dinner." Holy cow! This sounds like a big improvement. For a moment, there were various sounds of birdsong in the corridor. People who were originally admiring Shimmy turned their attention directly to Chen Chusheng. Chapter 166, The former mother-in-law had a miscarriage. Even Chen Chusheng, who was in his 50s and had a thick skin, couldn't take it anymore at this point. "Uncle Chen, you'd better go take care of your business first. I'll talk to you about something later when I'm done." Wang Yu saw that more and more people were gathering in the corridor, and even people with casts on their legs and crutches were coming over to eat melons. He quickly asked Chen Chusheng to take his shimmy and leave. "Okay, Uncle Chen will go first." After saying that, Chen Chusheng gave Wang Yu's white hat a meaningful pat on the head. "Old man, that's enough. I had average grades in primary school moral education, so I'm not that enlightened." "Ha ha. Uncle Chen, I'll be waiting for your call." As he watched Chen Chusheng leave with Shimmy, Wang Yu felt that he had been too good to Chen Yuting. He had only slapped her once since the divorce. Compared to Chen Chusheng's revenge on Lu Baozhang and Li Yuzhen, his own actions were nothing. Although he had beaten Wen Liang a few times and slept with his adoptive mother, Chen Yuting seemed to be doing just fine. Chen Chusheng was the one who had driven him out of the Chen family, and he had nothing to do with it. And although he had received 5 million yuan in the divorce, the money had come from Chen Chusheng. The house he had bought at the beginning seemed to still be in Chen Yuting's name. Wang Yu felt a surge of anger when he thought about it. Damn it! No way! I must teach Chen Yuting a lesson so that she knows the price of betraying me. While Wang Yu was still pondering how to retaliate, Director Lin couldn't wait any longer. Just now, when Su Mu saw Wang Yu chatting with someone, he went into the operating room by himself. Now that everyone had left, Wang Yu was still standing in the same place, lost in thought. He couldn't help but speak up and urge him on. "Dr. Wang, President Su has already gone into the operating room. If you have anything else here, I can help you with it." Hearing Director Lin's words, Wang Yu came back to his senses. He had just been thinking of several ways to get back at Chen Yuting, but the harsh ones were illegal, and the ones that weren't illegal were useless. Looking at Director Lin in front of him, he had a brainstorm and asked, "Director Lin, you are a woman and often deal with them in the gynecology department. Tell me, what kind of pain can make a woman remember it for a lifetime? Giving birth to a child, there is no pain in the world that can compare to giving birth to a child. The pain of the uterus opening 10 fingers and the displacement of the bones is something you men will never be able to experience in your lifetime," Director Lin said without a second thought. Although she is the director of the gynecology department, she also worked in the obstetrics department for a few years. Women who have given birth naturally are crying for their parents, and they hate to strangle their husbands. After listening to Director Lin's description, Wang Yu immediately had a very good idea. It hurts to give birth to one child, so wouldn't it hurt even more to give birth to 3? If you give birth to 3 children in a row for 10 years, hee. Just thinking about it is exciting. 30 sets of houses, 30 sets of gifts, 30 daughters-in-law, and dozens of grandchildren. Just thinking about it makes Wang Yu feel a chill down his spine. After a few casual words with Director Lin, Wang Yu went into the operating room, and at this time, Su Mu had already begun his work. Seeing Wang Yu come over, he immediately signaled for him to hurry up, his eyes unable to help but scold, "This guy is so unproductive, doesn't he know that saving lives is like putting out a fire?" When he came closer and looked at his unconscious ex-mother-in-law, Wang Yu felt nothing. He pitied her, but when he thought about the things she had done, he felt that in ancient times she would not even have a grave. Wang Yu reached out to take her pulse, and Li Yuzhen's physical condition was immediately displayed. After narrowing his eyes slightly and taking a look, Wang Yu sighed that the heavens are good at turning things around. Li Yuzhen can be saved, but the child in her stomach is already hopeless. "Director Su, the child is gone," Wang Yu said as he withdrew his hand. "What do you mean, can't be saved or what?" "There is no more fetal movement or fetal sucking, and after more than 4 months of development, it is not completely developed. There is no way to save it even if you want to." After saying this, Wang Yu stood up and prepared to leave. "Brother Yu, there is nothing you can do?" Sumu had initially placed great hope in Wang Yu, but when he heard that there was nothing he could do, he felt a bit lost. I am a doctor, not a god. I can cure diseases and save lives, but I can't bring the dead back to life. Wang Yu left after saying this. As for Li Yuzhen's life, Sumu had no problem at all, and he didn't need to intervene. Besides, he didn't want to intervene. Outside the operating room, looking at Lu Baoxian, who was sitting in a chair, Wang Yu sighed slightly. If he had known this would happen, he would never have done it in the first place. Why did so many women provoke men who already had wives? Don't you know that the hatred of stealing a wife is on a par with the hatred of killing one's father? Doctor, how is my child? Hearing Wang Yu's sigh, Lu Baoxian looked up and saw Wang Yu next to him. At this time, his eyes were bloodshot, his expression was tense, and his body kept trembling. Sir, you were able to save the child. Please accept my condolences. As soon as Wang Yu's words came out, Lu Baoxian, in his 50s, burst into tears. The heart that had longed for years but had been unable to get what it wanted had gradually died, but with Li Yuzhen's pregnancy, it was once again full of hope and passion. But at this time, the pain of gaining and then losing again was too much for him to accept. Lu Baoxian hated. He resented his own greed, resented Ma Rongrong's resistance, and even resented Wang Yu in front of him who was unable to save his son. It's you, isn't it? You're the one who harmed my son. Were you just whispering with Chen Chusheng about how to harm my child? Lu Baoxian reached out to grab Wang Yu's clothes. At this time, his mind was already in a state of chaos. The situation of Wang Yu chatting with Chen Chusheng just now made him think that the death of his son was a conspiracy between them. However, Wang Yu did not indulge him at all. He reached out and pushed Lu Baoxian aside, too lazy to pay attention to this scoundrel, and turned around to prepare to leave. Don't go, you murderer, how much did Chen Chusheng pay you to harm my child? The stillbirth of his child had already made Lu Baoxian lose his cool, and at this point, he was convinced that Chen Chusheng and Wang Yu had conspired to kill his child. I said, aren't you an idiot, how could you not have any sense of the loss of your child, and you made me say it in public? Wang Yu, who was once again being hassled by Lu Baoxian, didn't want to hit him in public, but he also wouldn't give him a good face. Even a beast that is less kind than a gentle person can lay hands on his own cousin. How could Chen Chusheng not kill this guy? The two argued loudly, and soon attracted some onlookers. After hearing Lu Baoxian's screams, Chen Chusheng rushed over again with Shimmy. Seeing Wang Yu being harassed, he immediately told his two bodyguards to go over and pull Lu Baoxian away. Chen Chusheng. Lu Baoxian, who was under control, stared at Chen Chusheng with murder in his eyes, wishing he could eat his flesh raw. The melon-eating crowd, who did not know the truth, looked at Wang Yu and Chen Chusheng with anger in their eyes. It is the nature of most people to sympathize with the weak, and at this time, Lu Baoxian really looked miserable. What are you shouting about? I can hear you from here. Chen Chusheng didn't care about the stares of the people around him. He was happy to see Lu Baoxian crying in pain. Not only was he happy, but he also felt like he had avenged a great wrong. He hadn't forgotten what that idiot had said some time ago, scolding him for being a deadbeat who no one visited at the grave and deserved to be raising someone else's daughter for 30 years. Chen Chusheng could remember Lu Baoxian's arrogant look for the rest of his life. Chapter 167, Chen Chusheng shows Wang Yu what revenge is on the spot. It was already devastating to find out that the daughter he had raised for 30 years was not his own. After learning that Li Yuzhen had given birth to another son for Lu Baoxian, Chen Chusheng cursed the heavens for being unfair. Although he didn't have the heart to commit suicide those few days, he basically also despaired of the future. At this time, Lu Baoxian and his position had completely switched. In terms of wealth, I, Chen Chusheng, have a net worth of billions. As for women, just look at the 10 beauties behind me. If my body could take it, I could have 10 more. As for children, don't you see that the 10 beauties are all pregnant? With a career, women, and offspring, Chen Chusheng has been living it up these days. He has also relaxed the conditions for the 10 beauties who helped him have children. He originally thought that after they gave birth, he would pay them off and let them go. However, Wang Yu's prescription for women's health, based on the system, combined with the ancient prescriptions that the Su family had seen, had really good results for Chen Chusheng. After a period of conditioning, Chen Chusheng had managed to increase his previous 2 minutes to almost 20 minutes. He then offered an attractive condition: if Shimmy agreed to stay after giving birth to take care of the child, she would get a monthly salary of 100,000. And they can choose to leave at any time. These conditions made the group of ambitious young girls immediately cheer and jump for joy, and they felt closer to Chen Chusheng than to their own fathers. At this time, Chen Chusheng felt like the door to a new world had opened, and his old-fashioned thinking had long since been thrown away. As a rich man, he finally began to activate his ability to spend money. Chen Chusheng's arrogance finally caused public outcry, and the onlookers began to accuse him one after the other. How can you be like this? Let go of that old man, if you're so capable. Old man, I have an infectious disease. I advise you to keep a low profile, or else. A hive of voices swarmed in to right wrongs. Chen Chusheng looked at these people who didn't know the truth and glared at them coldly, his thin body showing no trace of fear. Seeing this, the two bodyguards let go of Lu Baoxiang and stood in front of Chen Chusheng. Shermei, who was carrying her bulging belly, had never seen such a scene before and was a bit out of place. A few of them silently took a few steps back and kept their distance from Chen Chusheng. Shut up, all of you. After a minute of silence, Chen Chusheng looked at the excited crowd, pushed past the bodyguards in front of him, and shouted at the crowd a few steps forward. Damn it! A bunch of senseless idiots, thinking that there is strength in numbers, or that there is strength in a loud voice. Are you looking at me bully this guy, thinking that I'm not a thing, and want to know why I'm bullying him? Chen Chusheng pointed at Lu Baoxiang, who was sitting on the ground in a daze, and said with a gloomy face. The shouting and cursing from the opposite side gradually subsided. In a matter of a few breaths, those who were shouting and cursing happily found that their teammates were not giving it their all, and they all shut up. These people had a pair of guts at first glance. After they realized they had become the first to speak out, they immediately stopped yelling and cursing, and each one of them retreated back into the crowd. Seeing the crowd opposite him quiet down, Chen Chu pouted his lips in disdain. He was in his 50s and had experienced it all, so he wasn't afraid of this. Inside is lying my ex-wife. Chen Chusheng pointed at the door to the operating room and said loudly to the onlookers, as if to explain, but it was more like an outburst. This animal is my ex-wife's cousin. Lu Baoxiang, who had been suddenly pointed at by Chen Chusheng, suddenly felt that something was wrong. Could he and Li Yuzhen's affair be spoken about in public? He immediately struggled to his feet and rushed towards Chen Chusheng, trying to stop him talking. Unfortunately, the bodyguard, who was paid 30,000 yuan a month, was not hired for nothing, and Lu Baoxiang, an old man in his 50s, was subdued once again and could only struggle helplessly. Chen Chusheng never once looked at him from beginning to end, his gaze fixed on the growing crowd. A few decades ago, after I married my ex-wife, I took good care of this bastard for the sake of our relatives. I started a small factory with a loan of 200,000 yuan, and developed it step by step until it became a multi-billion-dollar group company. With my help, this bastard started out scratching a living from the land and went on to own hundreds of millions of assets. I want to ask you, what have I ever done to him? Chen Chusheng became more and more agitated and angry as he spoke, and the pent-up pain in his heart made him feel that he had to let it out. Stop it, I beg you to stop. Lu Baoxiang, who had struggled for a long time without effect, helplessly begged Chen Chusheng at this time. However, Chen Chusheng did not respond at all to his pleas. As the boss of a group company, he supported tens of thousands of employees, so how could he be affected by a few pleas from his enemy? Is it because you see him crying pitifully that you think I am a bad person? Looking at the stunned crowd, Chen Chusheng lowered his voice a little, but his tone was even more unsettling. Do you know that my ex-wife gave birth to a daughter for him 30 years ago, and now she is pregnant with a son for him again? As soon as these words came out, the entire crowd exploded. Holy shit! This old man is ruthless. The story of the farmer and the snake doesn't do him justice. Being ungrateful is an understatement. No wonder this old gentleman treated him like this. If I were him, I would wipe out his entire family. He looks so pitiful, but what he did was so disgusting. People like him deserve to be executed. Lu Baoxiang instantly went from being a vulnerable group to being the target of everyone's verbal and written attacks. The public's opinion really changes quickly. After venting for a while, Chen Chusheng felt that the depression in his heart that had been building up for months had dissipated a lot. He waved his hand to indicate that the bodyguards should let go of Lu Baoxiang. He was no longer interested in this guy. Knowing that he and Li Yuzhen's son were no longer together, Chen Chusheng's mood improved a lot. But if he gets the chance, he will still step on him a few times. Some hatred is not so easy to forget. Xiaoyu, what do you want with Uncle Chen? Coming to Wang Yu's side, Chen Chusheng asked in a gentle tone. His change of heart was breathtaking. For this former father-in-law, Wang Yu was really in awe at this time. He was younger than him, too young. Uncle Chen, let's go somewhere and talk in private. The chaotic environment in the corridor made Wang Yu a little headache. A good hospital was about to become a food market. Wait, I'll say a few words to Lu Baoxiang. Chen Chusheng thought that no matter what, people should know the reason for their death. No, there are some things that I should tell Lu Baoxiang, otherwise it would be very uncomfortable to die without knowing the reason. He went to Lu Baoxiang and said in a low voice. The information that you went to get a room was sent by me to Li Yuzhen. Are you surprised or not? Then, looking directly into Lu Baoxiang's angry eyes, he continued. Don't think that this is the end. We will meet again. As long as you two don't die, we will continue to play. After Chen Chusheng finished speaking, he patted Lu Baoxiang's face and laughed a few times meaningfully, then turned and left. Lu Baoxiang looked at Chen Chusheng, who had left with Shimmy, and spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes rolled and he fainted. Chapter 168, 10 Brothers. After leaving the gynecology department, Chen Chusheng dismissed Shimmy and followed Wang Yu to his consultation room. Uncle Chen, I have an idea about the cooperation you mentioned some time ago. After the two sat down, Wang Yu went straight to the point. Oh, is it the Wenshur group from Tiannan City? I wonder what kind of cooperation you have in mind. Hearing Wang Yu's words, Chen Chusheng's immediate rationality returned, and the whole person regained his previous calmness. Uncle Chen, I wonder how much you know about this Shuguang hospital. Wang Yu asked pointedly in return. I have heard of it. Shuguang Hospital was set up by Sunning and the Sun brothers together. It seems to be making a fortune. Damn it. This has spread throughout the hospital circles. No public hospital in Shudu City can compare. Apart from having the top 10 experts, there is also a mysterious doctor at the top. He is famous for his high medical skills and expensive fees. It is hard to find out anything about him. I heard that he makes money faster than a money printing machine. In fact, I started this hospital first, and Suning and my uncles joined later. I don't know if Uncle Chen is interested in a private hospital. Wang Yu felt a little pleased in his heart. Although he didn't have any shares in Shuguang, he was really indispensable to the establishment of the hospital. Yes, I'm interested. Tell me more, Xiaoyu. Uncle Chen is a businessman, and as long as it's a profitable business, he's interested. Hearing Wang Yu's words, Chen Chusheng's breathing became slightly rapid. You have to know that at present, his entire wealth is not comparable to Shuguang Hospital. Okay, Uncle Chen. Originally, I was thinking of telling Wen Xin and asking you to go to Tiannan City to talk to the Wen group. But in the past few days, I've had an idea and I want to drag Uncle Chen into it. Of course, my brothers-in-law, the Wen group, and the Su family will also join in, but I don't know what Uncle Chen thinks. Wang Yu paused here. After all, it involved billions of dollars in investment. Although his own side was strong, the other party might not necessarily agree to join. Xiaoyu, go on. Uncle Chen trusts your character. Besides, the Wen group has always had a good reputation, and the Su and Sun families are well known in the circles of Shudu City. Uncle Chen would be happy to cooperate with them. Chen Chusheng answered quickly. After all, he knew Wang Yu's character and personality very well, and the two of them had both been cheated on by a mother and daughter, so they had been through the wars together. As for the Wen group, they would be doing Wang Yu a great favor by not kicking him out and letting him go it alone. The Su and Sun families were also not to be compared to him in terms of their achievements in certain fields. To be honest, Chen Chusheng was doing Wang Yu a great favor by being able to work with them. Does Maria Hospital know that it is currently owned by the Wen group? I want to revitalize this hospital and merge it with Shuguang Hospital, which will become a branch of Shuguang in Xiqing district. With one in the east and one in the west, they will complement each other, and Shuguang Hospital's coverage will be even wider. And this is just the beginning. It won't take much effort to turn around Mary Hospital, but what I'm about to say will require a lot of hard work. My next step is to set up a hospital in Tiannan City, then in the Magic City, and eventually in Kyoto. The two of them didn't even have lunch, and they spent several hours talking in the consultation room. Wang Yuyue became more and more excited as he spoke, and Chen Chusheng became more and more impressed as he listened. Many of Wang Yuyue's ideas were still quite immature. After all, he had never done business before, but there was no denying that his overall plan still left Chen Chusheng feeling shocked. If this plan succeeds, the name Shuguang Hospital will be unstoppable. At that time, not only will there be a financial reward, but social status will also be greatly improved. There are countless hidden resources, and by then, even if his 10 sons divide up his assets, each of them will be a small boss, which is not bad at all. Chen Chusheng looked at Wang Yu and hated in his heart that he wanted to strangle Li Yuzhen. What a good son-in-law. Look at the evil you have done, you have caused me to change from being a father to an uncle. Xiaoyu, I'm afraid Uncle Chen won't be able to see what you're talking about. When Wan Yu talked about what Shiguan Hospital would look like in 30 years, Chen Chusheng couldn't help but interrupt him. Well, I got carried away, but Uncle Chen, in 30 years, you'll only be in your 80s, and you might still be going strong. Look at Li from Xiangjiang and he, they're both in their 90s and still very energetic. Chen Chusheng listened to Wang Yu's words, his mouth twitching. My father is still shining at the age of 80 plus, and Joe the Skinflint is not as ruthless as you. As for the two people you mentioned, how many people can grow that kind of head? If I were like them, I would not have been cheated like this. To go far afield, I estimate that Uncle Chen will only be able to carry on for another 10 years or so. When your 10 younger brothers grow up, they will all hang out with you. 10 younger brothers. Wang Yu's head was spinning. At the time, he just wanted to give a chance to people who work hard. He never expected to cause this situation. These 10 younger brothers are considered to be brought into the world by himself, so he can't help but take care of them in the future. Don't worry, Uncle Chen, I recognize these 10 younger brothers, and I will definitely take care of them in the future. Xiaoyu, there is something I want to ask you to help me with. Chen Chusheng's tone changed and he directly pleaded. Uncle Chen, what is it? What do you mean, do you need anything? It's like this, you've helped Uncle Chen get 10 sons, and he wants a daughter, but the college girls he's been seeing can't get pregnant. Chen Chusheng has been wondering about this for a while. In addition to Shimmy, he's also been using his ability to activate banknotes to find a few more attractive women with higher quality, but for some reason, he hasn't been able to get pregnant with any of them except Shimmy. At first, he thought it was his problem, but after Shimmy's belly grew bigger and bigger, he suspected the girls who hadn't gotten pregnant. He took them for medical examinations, and it turned out that they were all excellent childbearing experts. In private, Chen Chusheng went to a men's hospital for some tests, and the results were the same as a few months ago. Unbelieving, he went to several hospitals and had many more professional tests done, but the results were the same. However, he did discover a creepy truth. The reason why he has not had a child for so many years is actually caused by medication, but it has been too long to find out exactly what medication it is. But Chen Chusheng is a person with 800 hearts and minds, and after a little thought, he knows that it was Li Yuzhen and Lu Baoxiang who did it. These two people have been playing a big game from the beginning. If it weren't for Wang Yu uncovering the truth, after he is gone, the huge family fortune will not go to the Lu family. From that day on, Lu Baoxiang and Li Yuzhen were on Chen Chusheng's kill list, and he wanted to torture them to death little by little. The couple, who had been suppressed and driven bankrupt, were once again targeted by Chen Chusheng's people. This attention really revealed something, and Chen Chusheng was very happy at the time. If this matter is not properly exploited, I am really sorry for Li Yuzhen's infatuation with Lu Baoxiang. At the time, the idea was to make the two fight each other, and then he would fan the flames behind the scenes to promote a surge in conflict. Who would have thought that at the beginning of the plan, Lu Baoxiang and Li Yuzhen's son would disappear? Although it was a bit unexpected, the result also made Chen Chusheng very satisfied. Chapter 169, Mu Zhenjian's Anger. Chen Chusheng's words left Wang Yu at a loss for words. He had thought that having 10 beauties was the limit of what he could bear. Unexpectedly, this man who had grown older had become even more playful, which really made him feel inferior. After all, his own thinking was too narrow-minded and superficial. He couldn't help but sigh, after all, he was still too immature. At the moment, there was nothing he could do but stare with envy. Uncle Chen, if you long for a daughter, you can bring the relevant people to see me, and I will do my best to help you see if it is feasible. Wang Yu said. Thank you, nephew, for your words. Chen Chusheng was overjoyed to hear this and expressed his gratitude. After receiving such a certain reply, Chen Chusheng was full of joy, because his dream of having both a son and a daughter was about to come true. In fact, Chen Chusheng still had another deep meaning hidden, but the time was not ripe and it was not convenient to disclose it. After his beloved daughter was born and raised for 10 or 20 years, just a little trick, hee hee. At that time, wouldn't this brat have to respectfully address him as father-in-law? With such a close relationship, the next 2 generations of the Chen family would be safe and sound. In terms of layout, it has to be Chen Chusheng. When Wang Yu and Chen Yuding divorced, he never expected that they would cross paths again. However, after months of contact and investigation, Chen Chusheng slowly came to appreciate Wang Yu's extraordinary talents. Although Wang Yu is just an ordinary doctor at the moment, the network of connections he has made is so extensive and deep that it is a level that Chen Chusheng has spent decades cultivating and still cannot reach. The reason is that Chen Chusheng knows how to seize the moment. He cleverly exploits the tenuous connections, feigning a pitiful and sympathetic appearance, and finally succeeds in rebuilding his friendship with Wang Yu. As a result, all kinds of benefits followed. Not only did he have a son, but he was also expecting a daughter. More importantly, in the business world, Wang Yu also gave Chen Chusheng strong support. The price Chen Chusheng paid was nothing more than following the habits he had developed over the years of doing business, leaving room for maneuver, not offending people, and not going too far. It was this measly 5 million that left him a glimmer of hope. Otherwise, he would have long been tortured to death by Wang Yu's group of difficult-to-deal-with brothers-in-law and other friends. The two men chatted for a while in the consultation room, and then agreed on a time for their next meeting. As Chen Chusheng said goodbye to Wang Yu and left, he handed Wang Yu another card before leaving, saying that it was for the consultation fee for regulating the daughter. As Chen Chusheng left, Wang Yu sighed to himself, thinking that when they got married, he had never seen his father-in-law be so considerate. After the divorce, this guy has changed so quickly. First, he gave 5 million, so that the big melon I had prepared was embarrassed to burst out. Then he gave away property and recognized his adoptive relatives, so that I didn't know how to deal with it. After the success of the fertility treatment, he directly gave 20 million in medical fees, not taking any advantage. Now that his daughter hasn't even asked for it yet, he gave her another card. This old guy seems to be getting better and better. It's completely different from what I understood before. Before, he seemed like a capitalist, but now he feels like a god of wealth. This Chen is really a good person after being cheated on. After receiving the card, Wang Yu started working. He earned extra money, but he couldn't neglect his regular work. Chen is still working so hard at his age, and I, Wang Yu, who is in my early 30s, can't just lie around. Wang Yu was in a pretty good mood the whole afternoon, and he quickly saw 5 patients. Then the guy just took off, afraid that Sumu would come and confront him later. If something like what happened in the morning happened again, he couldn't guarantee that he could remain calm. Leaving the hospital, Wang Yu drove away, humming a little tune, and dialed Sweetie's phone. "Have you gotten up yet, Sweetie?" Influenced by Chen Chusheng's sweet voice, Wang Yu still remembered it vividly, and he was feeling pretty horny. "My little treasure hasn't woken up yet." This is her mother. Mu Xinjian's angry voice echoed in the car. Wang Yu was so startled that he almost drove into the adjacent driveway. He calmed down and suppressed his arrogance. "Hello, Auntie Mu. Is Sweetie still asleep?" "Yes." Auntie Mu was quite happy when she received Wang Yu's call in the morning and rushed over to take care of Sweetie. After all, this son-in-law is not bad. At least he is willing to spend a lot of money on her daughter. After arriving, she saw Sweetie still asleep and sighed inwardly. But then she thought that every woman will have her day, and she didn't get angry. She immediately prepared to wake Sweetie up to eat something, but after calling her a few times, she found that her daughter was lying there without moving. This scared Mu Xinjian a lot, so she quickly walked over, touched Sweetie's little head, and gently called her to get up. "Daughter, Mommy has made you something delicious, get up and eat before going back to sleep." After being woken up by her mother, Sweetie's eyes were still a little dazed, and she looked languid and sleepy like a little kitten. "Mom, I'm so tired, I don't want to move. Can I eat later?" "My dear daughter, get up and eat something, don't go hungry." After being persuaded by her mother, Sweetie obediently got up, her little frown immediately creasing her forehead. But she was so tired, just like a child who had stayed in bed over the winter holidays, and she pouted at her mother. "Mom, can I sleep a little longer?" "What for? It's already late. Get up and eat," Mu Xinjian said, and gave Sweetie a tap on the head. "Ah. Mom, why are you like this?" Sweetie said, hugging her head and pouting. "Forget it, eat in bed. After you've finished, I'll put some hot water on for you to soak in." Seeing her daughter's cute appearance, Mu Xinjian sighed and fetched the food. Sweetie nodded a little, and under her mother's feeding, she ate obediently. Mu Xinjian was distressed by her daughter, so after feeding her, she went to the bathroom, filled the bathtub with water, tested the temperature and found it just right, then took a bathrobe and went out. "Daughter, put it on and take a bath." After Sweetie finished washing and fell asleep again, when Xinjian didn't even have someone to talk to. She had been holding back her anger all day, and now Wang Yu's call came through, just in time to find an outlet for it. Although she didn't see anyone, it didn't stop Mu Xinjian from unleashing her anger. The output lasted for more than 10 minutes, and Wang Yu kept apologizing and promising from beginning to end. "Auntie, please take care of Sweetie more these few days, I'll ask for her leave so she can rest." While Mu Xinjian was catching her breath, Wang Yu managed to say a complete sentence. You're lucky you have a little conscience, otherwise. Then there was another few minutes of threats and intimidation. I don't know where this auntie got her eloquence from. After hanging up the phone, Wang Yu let out a long sigh of relief. The call lasted half an hour, and he was being argued with for 28 minutes. If he wasn't in the wrong, he would have hung up long ago. After calming down, he hurried over to Wenxin's place. He needed to have a serious talk with her about the incident at the Maria Hospital. Chapter 170 What is Revenge? After bidding farewell to Wang Yu, Chen Chusheng did not go straight back to the company, but instead went to a very inconspicuous residential area. After a lot of twists and turns, he arrived in front of a dilapidated door. Knock, 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 knock. The knocking had a sense of a secret agent meeting up. After about 10 minutes of no movement, if this were an ordinary person, they would either keep knocking, or they would have already left. But Chen Chusheng was in no hurry at all, and just waited quietly in the same spot, with an incredibly good patience. Feeling that it was about time, he raised his hand and knocked again. Knock, knock, knock. After 3 rhythmic knocks, the door opened directly. The person inside did not come or say anything, and Chen Chusheng did not say anything either and just walked in. The interior decoration of the house really made up for the dilapidated state of the neighborhood, and even more for the dilapidated door. It was so luxurious, and the furniture and decorations in the living room alone felt like they were worth no less than $1 million. Sitting on the top Italian sofa, Chen Chusheng took out a cigarette, and a small, snow-white hand immediately came over and lit it. Then the owner of the hand walked behind Chen Chusheng of her own accord to massage his shoulders. When the cigarette was finished, Chen Chusheng tapped the small hand on his shoulder to indicate that she should stop. The woman, of her own accord, helped him extinguish the cigarette butt, and then brewed a pot of tea and brought it over. Wrong, you handled this very well. The woman in front of him was actually Lu Baoqiang's lover Ma Rongrong. If Wang Yu knew, he would definitely admire Chen Chusheng even more. Thank you, Boss Chen, for your praise. Ma Rongrong was very respectful at this time, and there was not a trace of charm in her. The person sitting across from her was a major investor, and making money was the top priority at the moment. There is something else you need to do next, but it may be a bit risky, so you can refuse. Chen Chusheng had awakened his ability to make money, and coupled with his years of life experience, he had completely changed. This time, the hospitalization of Li Yuzhen was personally directed by him, otherwise how could a woman like Ma Rongrong, who was the ultimate type of woman, be supported by a mere 300,000 yuan? In fact, Ma Rongrong is very beautiful, but in order not to arouse Lu Baoqiang's suspicions, she specially put on makeup that lowered her appearance, and then adjusted it through some details. It took a lot of effort to lower her appearance from that of a goddess to that of an ordinary woman. But her skin, like that of a young goat, is also able to deeply attract knowledgeable men. Is Lu Baoqiang a very knowledgeable man? So Chen Chusheng designed this trap for him, and the guy easily fell into it. Only Chen Chusheng knew the entire plan, and Ma Rongrong was only paid to hook up with Lu Baoqiang. And the person responsible for the investigation didn't know that this woman was sent by Chen Chusheng. They didn't know each other, but under Chen Chusheng's careful design, they got the result he wanted. Boss Chen, why don't you say it? The riskier the thing, the more money it makes. Ma Rongrong's eyes lit up, and a flash of greed flashed past. Li Yuzhen is not mentioned for the time being, but she is now in the hospital, and it would be easy to be exposed if you try again. But Lu Baoqiang can still move a little. Chen Chusheng mentioned their names with a cold and murderous tone. 30 years of being a cuckold is not something that an ordinary person can accept, and the hard work of a lifetime was almost taken away by these bitches. How could Chen Chusheng not hate and be ruthless? A few months ago, when he asked Wang Yu to come over, he was actually explaining his afterlife. Li Yuzhen was pregnant, Lu Baoqiang had both a son and a daughter, and he was an old man living alone. At that time, he had already planned to kill the whole family. As for Chen Yuting, Chen Chusheng really couldn't bring himself to do it. After all, he had raised his daughter from a little girl to a young woman, and had called her dad for more than 20 years. Even if she wasn't his biological daughter, he couldn't bear to hurt her. But she also couldn't take advantage of the Chen family. Chen Laoren had already preserved his only conscience by not seeking revenge against Chen Yuting, so he kicked her out of the house that very day. A series of revenge plans had already been constructed in his mind. He just had to step-by-step force Lu Baoqiang to lose everything, and then finish him off. If Wang Yu had not given him hope, Lu Baoqiang and Li Yuzhen would have already been dead. However, after Shimi became pregnant one after the other, Chen Chusheng completely gave up the idea of trading lives, but that did not mean he would let the old lovers go. At this time, Lu Baoqiang saw that he could not withstand the pressure from the Chen group and decisively withdrew, ultimately leaving behind a fully paid house and more than 7 million in savings. These assets can ensure that he and Li Yuzhen can live comfortably for the rest of their lives, and after they are gone, they can also leave a good fortune to their son. Old Lu's thoughts are quite beautiful, but this is not something that old Chen can tolerate. You want to live the rest of your lives in peace, but have you asked if I, Chen Chusheng, agree? Now that the plan has reached its end, Chen Chusheng doesn't go so far as to kill Lu Baoqiang, but he won't make it easy for him either. He wants to make Lu Baoqiang unable to find a place to live and unable to spend money. As for Li Yuzhen, she will lose her old lover, her son will die, and her own daughter will disown her. Loneliness until death is the greatest punishment for her. Rongrong, I want you to marry Lu Baoqiang. Ma Rongrong frowned slightly upon hearing this, and marrying that old thing made her extremely uncomfortable. I will give you 10 million. You only need to maintain a marriage with Lu Baoqiang for 1 year. Chen Chusheng offered a price that she couldn't refuse, and Ma Rongrong's breathing suddenly quickened a little, and her ample breasts rose and fell violently. She had to seduce Lu Baoqiang into maintaining a lover's relationship with her for nearly a month to earn 2 million. This time, she just had to coax the guy to register and get a marriage license with her, and she could stall for a year. The 10 million would be completely earned for free. No problem, I'll take the deal. Okay, but after you marry Lu Baoqiang, take care of the 2 little girls and his family a little, and notify their mother as soon as possible to take them away. Chen Chusheng really couldn't bring himself to hurt Coco and Xiaobao, so in order not to get them involved, he decided to give them to their real mother. As far as he knew, Chen Yuding wasn't having an easy time either. Her lover, the general manager of the Wen's group, now seemed to be a vegetable. Taking care of 2 children and a vegetable is a small punishment for a big crime. These are all trivial matters, Boss Chen, don't worry. Ma Rongrong was very happy at this time. With this 10 million, plus the money she had earned over the years, she would be completely comfortable for the rest of her life. It was also time to find an honest man to marry her, and in the future, she would hide away in the mountains and raise her children in peace. The two then exchanged some details, and after they finished, Chen Chusheng left. Ma Rongrong personally opened the door to see her big benefactor off, then closed the door and went to the dressing table, painting and drawing on her face. She was going to ask Lu Baoqiang to have dinner with her that night, but she didn't know that Lu Baoqiang wasn't in the mood to eat at all. As for marrying this old man, it wasn't as easy as she thought. After Chen Chusheng left the community, he made a phone call. Lawyer Fong, how's Lu Baoqiang's evidence collection going? Chapter 171, 3 Warm Questions. After communicating with Lawyer Fong on the phone for a while, Chen Laoren's slightly pale face gradually turned rosy. It's almost ready. Lu Baoqiang, Li Yuzhen, you will pay the price soon. It's really dangerous for an old man who has been cuckolded for more than 30 years to discover the truth, but what's even more dangerous than that is that this old man has a net worth of billions, and he will stop at nothing to take his revenge. When a fox has the body of a tiger, what are the chances of the prey escaping? Chen had successfully laid his trap, and Wang Yu had arrived at their cozy home. As for the rented room upstairs, he hadn't been up there for a long time. He couldn't sleep without something soft in his arms, and not only had his new villa been gathering dust, he hadn't been to the rented room upstairs for a long time. When he opened the door, the little girl Wanwan jumped over to him at once, circled around Wang Yu, and then shook her little head before going back to her room. What's wrong with this girl? She's acting so strange today. Wang Yu was baffled. Wen Xin, who was leisurely reading a book on the sofa, glanced up at Wang Yu and then turned around and ignored him. What's going on? Why have the two of them gone silent and stopped talking to each other? Wang Yu walked over to Wen Xin and sat down next to her, then pulled her into his arms. He rested his head on the woman's shoulder and began to get handsy. After a few moments, Wen Xin broke his hold and glared at him reproachfully, saying, "Where's Tian Tian? She's at home resting." "Why?" Wang Yu answered sheepishly, "Although my wife gave me permission, I'm still a little embarrassed to talk about it. Xiao Yu, Sister Mu called me this afternoon." Wen Xian's words were just enough to get the point across, and there were some things she couldn't say either. Anyway, I will definitely pay attention in the future. Damn the Shen Yuanyang Ju, you won't have any weaknesses, being this strong is not cheating me, Wang Yu thought to himself, quickly changing the subject. What happened to Wan Wan? I was resting when I got the call, and Wan Wan answered. With that, Wen Xin pinched Wang Yu's soft flesh in the waist hard. Hiss. It doesn't hurt very much. Wang Yu's skin has finally developed some resistance after all the training, but he still screamed a little when he was pinched. What did that sweet mother say? And Wan heard it all. Wenxin, whose hand Wang Yu had grabbed, didn't bother to break free. Thinking about the embarrassing scene after the mother and daughter had hung up in the afternoon, she couldn't help but feel a headache. Wan listened to a few things and was driven away by me, but the little girl probably guessed what happened. Xiaoyu, is there really no way to deal with your health situation? Now Chanqian and I are both pregnant, and Yuan is afraid to have a baby now. And, sweetie, what have you done about her? Do you let her live alone? Wenwen has been a little anxious these past few days. It seems that Wang Yu's health problem is not going to be easy to solve, and she doesn't really have a good solution for this kind of thing. Sun Qian has come up with a crazy idea, and she's already started implementing it. I don't know if Wang Yu will cry when she finds out. My villa is still empty. My parents went back after a few days. You guys aren't going to stay there, so what can I do? Wang Yu also felt a bit helpless when it came to this. Recently, she has been running back and forth between the two places. After counting in Tian, she will be running back and forth between 3 places. When will this end? It's not that she doesn't want to go, but it's easy to get into trouble when she goes. And what about Wan? If we all go over there, will Wan be here alone? Wenxin also knows this bad man's ulterior motives, but she does have a lot of concerns. What if something happens? After listening to Wenxin's words, Wang Yu was curious and wondered what she was worried about. Your villa, with so many women living there, if someone were to cause trouble, do you think you could explain yourself? This man really thinks too simply. Although none of them are married, if they live in the same house. If they really get targeted, they will definitely not get away with the crime of group lewdness. At that time, will they all go in together and so? Wenxin's head ached just thinking about it. She had only talked about it with Sun Qian, and Yuan didn't even know about it. The two women had thought about it for a long time, but they didn't have a good solution. This is easy. I already thought of a good solution. Hearing this, Wang Yu immediately perked up. He had thought it was a big deal, worrying about being reported. This is easy to solve. What is the solution? Wenxin asked curiously. She and Sun Qian had been thinking about it for a long time, but they hadn't figured out what to do. Could this kind of thing really be solved so easily? Speaking of which, we have to thank the omnipotent netizens, because without them, we wouldn't have been able to come up with a solution. Wang Yu gave a mysterious smile, inwardly marveling at his own cleverness. In fact, the netizen was himself, and he was happy about that for a long time. However, Wenxin and Chanqian were unwilling to stay at the villa, which prevented him from implementing his plan and using such a good method. Now that he knew the reason, the rest was much simpler. His former dream could really come true, and just thinking about it made him a little excited. My villa has more than 10 rooms that can accommodate people. I will rent them out individually online, and you can each rent a room. I will sign a formal contract with each of you, and then pay the appropriate taxes. With just a simple explanation, Wang Yu's status changed to that of landlord and tenant, and living together in this way was absolutely reasonable and legal, so there was no need to worry about being reported. Seeing the warmth of her surprised, slightly parted lips, Wang Yu couldn't help but kiss her, and then continued. Once you all become my tenants, who do you think we have to worry about, and who can find trouble with me? As for Wan, it's even better, a 3-story house, just don't live on the same floor. The advantage of a big house is just being so arbitrary. At that time, the relatives will be on one floor, the children on one floor, and you and your wife on one floor, so you can live together and also prevent a lot of embarrassing situations. Oh, I've installed surveillance cameras at the entrance, so even if someone does report it, there'll still be time to respond. Wang Yu had already thought about being raided at this point. As long as he wasn't caught red-handed, the rest would be a matter of arguing over who was in the wrong. He had a contract, so what was there to fear? After listening to his explanation, Xin felt suspicious when she looked at Wang Yu. This guy really is not serious, or maybe no man is serious. Did you already have this planned out, and you're talking a lot of sense? No, I didn't think of it, I just read it online. Feeling that something was slightly wrong, Wang Yu simply denied it. Is the contract ready for us to sign? Xin didn't believe him so easily. Wang Yu's excitement just now was clear as day. Without waiting for Wang Yu to argue, she continued. More than 10 rooms? Buying such a big house, are you planning to rent it all out? Did I show it so obviously? Why do I feel that the woman in my arms is in danger? How am I going to answer this? Wang Yu was sweating profusely after the 3 questions. This guy had something on his mind. He had wanted to mention Su Mu's case at night, but now it seemed like, well, let's talk about it later. Sure enough, when it comes to solving this kind of thing, men are all talents. But women also have surprisingly strong powers of observation. Chapter 172. Wenxin helps her son find his father to collect the debt. Just as Wang Yu was at a loss for words when asked by Wenxin, a scream suddenly came from the room. Then Wanwan's room door opened automatically. The little girl had been eating melons for too long and her legs were numb from squatting. She had just tried to stand up and move around a bit, but forgot that the door was ajar. She applied force with her hands, but instead of standing up, she fell to the ground, losing her balance. She was rubbing her little bottom in distress. Wan. Wenxin first blushed, then became angry and ashamed. Ever since her health gradually improved, this girl liked to eat her own melons for no reason. When Wang Yu came over, Wan ran back to her room on her own, and when Xian thought her daughter had grown up. But it turned out that she was waiting here, actually hiding to eavesdrop. Mom, listen to me, I'm afraid that you'll be cheated by Uncle Wang, I just want to protect you. Seeing Wen Xian, who was walking closer with a pregnant belly, Wan got up and started to argue. Don't think that just because Wen's last name is Wen that she is a gentle and kind mother. You have to know that she is raising 4 children on her own, and her temper is not that good. She really loves them when she loves them, but when it comes to beating them up, she is ruthless. Bang! Wen slammed the door shut and didn't go in to scold the little girl. This was a bit disappointing to Wang Yu, who was sitting on the sofa, ready to watch the fun, and thought that someone who could attract fire had arrived, but he didn't expect the gun to still be pointed at him. Well, Wen, don't look at me like that. I really didn't think about it that much. I just wanted to buy a house so that everyone could live better. After some explanation, he saw that Wen was unmoved, her beautiful eyes still fixed on him. This made Wang Yu feel uneasy, so he tentatively said, why don't we get a smaller one? I bought a small villa in Dongqing district that's a few hundred square meters. Why don't we go live there? That was Tian and Mu Jinjin's house, and I'd be nothing there. It seemed that Wen had talked a lot with Mu Jinjin. If you can't, I'll just have to juggle it all myself. Wang Yu was at his wit's end with Wen Xian, and had no choice but to abandon his own plans. Go ahead and prepare the big villa. Tomorrow I'll talk to Chen, and you prepare the contract. We'll do it your way. Seeing Wang Yu's dejected expression, Wen Xian secretly smiled to herself. She had already decided to move in together after hearing his thoughts. Otherwise, I'm on my own at night, and I'm really afraid of hurting the baby. Really? Wang Yu's spirits soared at these words, and he ran over and gave Wen Xian a big hug. We'll move tomorrow, and I've already prepared the contract, just waiting for you to sign it. We'll buy some more groceries, and we can move in tonight. Wang Yu got more and more excited as he spoke, not noticing the sneer on the corner of Wen Xian's mouth. Sure enough, it had all been prepared long ago. Shit! It's all coming out. Wang Yu smiled awkwardly, and his arm around Wen Xian's shoulders froze. Nothing good ever happens when people are happy. With his mouth closed, Wang Yu helped Wen Xian sit on the recliner, and his hands started massaging his wife's head of their own accord. After a while, the dinner delivery arrived, and before Wang Yu could stand up, the little girl Wan ran out. After setting the table, the 3 of them were ready to start eating. Wan obediently sat next to her mother, and the 2 of them whispered to each other. However, Wang Yu's hearing was surprisingly good, and he didn't miss a word of their conversation. As for what they were talking about, the content was too bold, and Wang Yu didn't dare to let out a fart after listening to it. I really can't imagine that Wenxin would actually tell Wan these things. What if Wan sets her sights on me when she gets older in the future? Should I help or not? Honey, there's something I want to discuss with you. After the 2 women finished eating, Wang Yu was going to talk to Wenxin about the Maria Hospital. Wang Yu met Wenxin's gaze and continued. Can your group's holding company, Mary Hospital, be merged into our Shiguan Hospital? Wang Yu, who had never done business before, spoke very bluntly. Oh, you didn't mention it, I almost forgot. You teamed up with the Sun and Su families and let the 3 billion invested by my company go down the drain. How are you going to pay for this? Wenxin's cold eyes were full of hatred, and the aura of the business queen immediately revealed itself. Well, I didn't know at the time. If I had known it was your company, I would never have dared to rip you off. I don't care about that. I only care about the facts. Tell me, how are you going to solve this? I was going to leave that money to your son. The business queen has become unreasonable, even bringing up her son. Wang Yu's head is spinning. He thought that if he came back and appeased Wen Xin, everything would be fine. Now it seems that this is not going to be easy. What do you think, my dear wife? I'll do whatever you say. Facing his own woman, Wang Yu didn't know what to do. If this were anyone else, he wouldn't even bother talking to them. Wen Xin had even brought up her son, so he had no choice but to admit defeat. He thought to himself, I don't have that much money anyway, so I'll just pay with sex. Fine, just admit defeat and pay your son back, Wen Xin said. She then pushed out her stomach and held out a small, snow-white hand. Son, it hasn't come out yet, Wang Yu said, staring at Wen Xin's stomach in disbelief. The money belongs to my son, and I'm his mother, so I'll keep it until he pays me back. Wen Xin urged, while Wan hid on the side, laughing at Wang Yu's predicament. Can I pay you back in installments? Or can I pay you back in kind? Wang Yu calculated his savings, and estimated that he could only pay back a small fraction of the money. He decided that it was better to be a deadbeat, because he knew in his heart that Wen Xin would never ask him for the money. Now he just wanted to find an excuse to cause her a little trouble. A little fun between husband and wife, I get it. Wen Xin said with a duplicitous smile. Wan, who was standing nearby, really wanted to say that she cared, but after learning about Wen Xin and Wang Yu's secret, she was convinced, even though she found it unbelievable. She was not blind, and Wang Yu's 3 women were almost as young as she was, so there was nothing to question. Okay, you can pay in installments, but you have to pay interest. Wen Xin also knew Wang Yu's financial situation, and although he had a lot of money, it depended on who you compared him to. No problem, you decide the interest rate, I have no problem with that. Wang Yu said generously, it's just money, as long as you have your hands, you'll be fine. I'll sell you the Maria Hospital, but you have to pay 3 billion, you can pay in installments, but the interest is 300 million a year, what do you think? The Mary Hospital, including the land, the building, and those advanced medical equipment, is now worth at least 1 billion and is still very valuable. Wen Xin, this is a gift to yourself. You have to know that this hospital is worth so little in the hands of the Wen Group, and it will immediately double in his hands. Not a wife, are you asking me to pay back the money or give me money? Wang Yu asked with a serious face. Chapter 173 Wang Yu's Grand Blueprint. Wen Xin's idea was actually very simple. Through Tian, she learned that Wang Yu had been idle recently, with no sense of professionalism at all, working only 2 hours a day. Although he earned a lot, if he continued like this, he would become lazy and gradually become useless. As soon as Wang Yu mentioned the merger of Mary Hospital into Shiguan Hospital, she had an idea. This broken hospital was currently considered to be in the hands of her company. If it wants to develop, it is estimated that it will have to recruit a large number of doctors, but Shiguang Hospital in Dongqing District is currently too powerful, with the top 10 domestic experts plus the guy around it who was known as the Divine Doctor. There is no hope of turning things around at all. Instead of letting it go to waste, it is better to give it to Wang Yu and see if he can turn something out of it. As for the 3 billion, interest, and so on, if it weren't to take care of Wang Yu's pride, she wouldn't even mention it. If I sell it to you, remember to pay. Wen Xin emphasized the tone of these words, indicating that this is a business deal. Wang Yu felt very uncomfortable when he heard this. He had never owed anyone a penny except his parents. Now that Wen Xin had brought it up, Wang Yu didn't want to let her down. He made up his mind that he would work hard and pay her back 10 times over. Oh, not to Wen Xin, but to let her keep it for her son. Honey, I know what you mean. Don't worry, I'll work hard. Remember, this money belongs to our son. Wen Xin also felt awkward talking about money with Wang Yu, and wanted to change the subject after he finished. By the way, is there something else? Wang Yu thought about the plans he had told Chen Chusheng about, and wondered if he should tell Wen Xin about them. After all, when it came to business, the Sun, Su and Chen families were just like his younger brothers. And he didn't even think he would be able to have grandchildren. If he didn't rely on the system, he would probably still be moving bricks somewhere. Wen Xin, who had been helped to sit down by Wan, took a sip of water and looked at Wang Yu doubtfully. It's like this, my dear wife, I have a plan I want you to hear and see if it's feasible. Tell me. Wen Xin was very interested in Wang Yu's plan. No matter how feasible it was still worth being happy that her man was willing to make progress. Now the Dawn Hospital in Shudu City is developing very well. After taking over the Mary Hospital, the signboards will be changed, and the two hospitals will echo each other from the east and the west, and they will definitely develop even better in the future. I was thinking that your one group has deep roots in Tianan City, so let's work together to build a branch of Shuguang there as well. Wan Yu presented the grand blueprint he had constructed in his mind in great detail before when Xin. He had been thinking about this plan for a long time, but he wasn't just doing it for the money. The most important thing was his merit points. After being taken advantage of by Zhou Tingjian, his current merit points were just so, and he was still far from having 100,000. At first, the divine power of childbearing gave him a strong ability to accumulate wealth. As for the self-defense techniques for men, forget about it. At the moment it's just a little better physical fitness, and other than beating Wen Liang twice, it hasn't been used much so far. The bone-setting manual at the back is pretty good, giving him a detailed understanding of the human body, which is a perfect match for massage. Needless to say, the blessing is even better. It's simply the strongest divine power at the moment, and his own plan is also based around it. Once there are branches of Shuguang in every city in the country, by that time, if he bestows a blessing on himself, the amount of merit points he will earn will be incredible. As for the Yellow Emperor's internal classic, also known as Xuanyuan's secret of pleasuring women, Wan Yu really loves it. Ha ha. Although he always complains, who doesn't want to become stronger and stronger? Not to mention that this method of cultivation can also make one's woman more youthful and beautiful. It is truly infinitely useful. The temple in the village also has great potential for development. It can help protect against natural disasters, and I will definitely go back and study it when my merit points go up. Wan Yu is actually very smart, and he knows exactly where his strength comes from. Now that he has taken the first step in his plan, Wan Yu is very excited. Wenxin listened to his ideas warmly, but her brows furrowed tightly. It's not that Wan Yu's ideas are bad, but the likelihood of implementing this is really low. It's not a problem to open a Shuguang branch in Tianan City, but it's difficult in other cities. Wan Yu, things are not as simple as you think. After listening to Wan Yu, Xin poured a bucket of cold water on him to cool him down. Well, I know, this is not for you to give me advice. Wan Yu habitually reached out to prepare to embrace Xin in his arms. Wan next to them seemed to have automatically activated the invisibility spell, and the two of them ignored her existence. There was no way to proceed. Your plan is theoretically feasible, but in the end it can only be developed in 2 or 3 cities. Xin, who single-handedly built up the Wen's group, directly found the biggest weakness of this plan. What do you mean? Wan Yu was curious. He had recently compiled a set of massage techniques that were very effective for most women, and he had also come up with a recipe with no side effects. He was just waiting to find someone he trusted to start implementing it. Now Xin told him that it could only be developed in a few cities, so what's the point? It's simple, it's about profit. If you make more money, others will make less. Do you think those people won't cause trouble for you? If you can get away with causing trouble in one place, just imagine how many people you'll offend if you try to open hospitals all over the country. Xin shook her head as she spoke. The reason why her Wen's group had gone overseas for development was because it couldn't get out of Tianan City. Wen Liang's capabilities are still quite good. No matter what the reason is for this guy to come to Shudu City for development, at least the track he chose was supported after a group meeting. The result is obvious. The Sun and Su families combined don't have the local influence of the Wen group, and they have directly made him fail. There is no other way. Wan Yu frowned, a little unwilling in his heart. He thought it was a matter of technology or capital, which could be overcome. But there was nothing he could do about what Xin had proposed. There were more than 10 cities in the country, and he didn't think he could handle the pressure of dealing with the forces in all of them. Unless he shared the biggest profits, he couldn't do anything else. If he shared them all, he might as well focus on 2 or 3 cities, and that would make a lot of money. Xin had tried to develop in neighboring cities a few years ago. During the negotiations, each local force had asked for an exorbitant price, and the conditions they offered were almost like working for free. After that, her interest waned, and the group slowly expanded overseas. Although it was a bit slower, at least it could still guarantee a certain profit. But what she didn't expect was that Wan Yu wasn't doing this plan for the money. After listening to Wenxin's words, Wan Yu's eyes lit up. It turned out that as long as you split the money, it's over. Anyway, you'll definitely make a profit in the end. Chapter 174, Wan's Little Thoughts. Honey, this is doable. It doesn't matter if we make less money, as long as they are willing to follow the operating methods of Shiguan Hospital. Looking at the slightly excited Wang Yu, Wenxin patted his head. This guy doesn't have a fever either. Why would he do a money-losing deal? Honey, don't touch, I don't have a fever. This is not about money. As long as it doesn't cost money, I'll do it even if it's a waste of time. Wang Yu grabbed the small hand that Wenxin had placed on his forehead and said seriously. Okay, if you want to do it, there must be a reason, and I won't ask you about it. But I don't think the Chen, Su, and Sun families will join you in this. One knew a little about Wang Yu's differences, but everyone had their own secrets, and she wouldn't ask too many questions. It's fine, we can work together on a few profitable projects, and for those that aren't, we can just find local partners. We all know each other, and Wang Yu didn't want to drag anyone into unprofitable businesses. As long as the benefits of giving up are great enough, there's no need to worry about not having anyone cooperate. And this way, it will develop faster, without having to start from scratch. It is enough to negotiate a partner in each city, and you don't have to worry about anything else. Wang Yu only needs to ensure that the massage techniques are not leaked, and do a good job of keeping the prescriptions confidential. As for those who seek children, it is actually quite simple. First, give the other party a physical examination. As long as the man has some vitality and the woman is physically capable of getting pregnant. Once a month, count the sperm, choose a good place, go there yourself, and use the childbearing god's magic. After all, not many families can afford to spend 2 million to have a child. As for those who need further treatment, forget it. There's no time for that. They're so rich, they might as well adopt, which would be a good way to reduce the burden on the country. The two of them chatted until after 10 o'clock, and Wan fell asleep while listening. The little girl had originally wanted to hear some gossip, but the two suddenly got serious and started talking about business, and after listening for a while, she fell asleep leaning against the sofa. Okay, go to sleep. You carry Wan to her room. Wenxin patted her daughter's little head and said to Wang Yu, then stood up and started washing up. After looking at Wenxin leaving, Wang Yu felt a little uncomfortable. He had heard what the mother and daughter said during dinner. I never thought Wenxin's motherly love was so great, and I never expected that Wan would be so bold at such a young age. If I didn't know any of this, it wouldn't have mattered that he carried Wan inside, but I heard it, didn't I? Although it was a long time later, and it might not even happen, he still felt very conflicted at the moment. Forget it, why think so much? There's always a way, isn't there? Wang Yu picked up Wan in a princess carry. The girl is pretty light, it doesn't take much effort to pick her up. Wang Yu put Wan on the bed and covered her with a blanket. He had a tempting thought in his mind. He decided to try it out with Tian in a few days. After washing up, the two of them lay on the bed. Wang Yu behaved very honestly. After all, Wenxin's body was important, as was their son. This was not the time to fool around. I heard what you said to Wan while she was eating. Wang Yu couldn't hold back the words in his heart. After lying down for a while, he still wanted to talk about this with Wenxin. Did you hear that? What do you think? Wenxin acted very calmly. After all, she is a woman who has seen the world and knows a lot more than Wang Yu. What happened with Wan is not just what Wang Yu heard today. After Wenxin told her the secret of becoming younger, the little girl had a little scheme in mind. Wenxin has adopted Wan for so many years and of course knows her daughter's character very well. She found out in a few days. She coaxed and interrogated to find out Wan's thoughts, and the mother and daughter have also talked about this a few times. After talking about it so many times, Wenxin inevitably became swayed by Wan's opinions. Although she is currently in good health, there is no guarantee that she will remain so. For this reason, the two made a pact over dinner today. The gist of it is that if Wan does not find a suitable husband before she turns 30, Wenxin agrees that she can be with Wang Yu. Wenxin will dissolve the adoption relationship with Wan after she graduates from university, so that Wan can return to her biological family. Wan still has deep memories of her parents, and she will never forget how they spent all their money and begged everyone for help just to save her life. What's more, they immediately regretted abandoning her and searched for her for 10 years. When they found her, her father was willing to give his life for her. Wan doesn't hate her real parents, not at all. That's why she refused her father's offer to donate his heart, and she has kept her distance from them ever since. She's afraid that if she gets too close, her parents will be even more heartbroken when she dies. For this reason, the little girl had been living in great pain for the past 2 years, and had lost her youthful liveliness. It wasn't until Wang Yu's arrival that she was cured of her illness, and Wan Wan gradually became cheerful again. After being treated by Wang Yu for the first time, she had already called her parents and told them that her illness had been cured. The family of three had a long chat and cried for a long time. After discussing it, they did not dare to ask Wenxin to dissolve the adoption relationship with her. Wan Wan would never do that either. After all, it was Wenxin who saved her when she was at the darkest point in her life, and she would repay her with her whole life. As for her biological parents, Wan Wan would never give up either. The little girl made up her mind then and there that after she had completely recovered, she would study hard and make progress every day. When she grows up, she will work hard to earn a lot of money to support her adoptive mother and her biological parents. However, Wenxin later became pregnant with her own son, so the little girl's plan no longer worked. Later, she even learned the secret of her adoptive mother's youth. This matter became more and more chaotic. In the end, Wenxin and Wan Wan talked a few times and decided to go back to her biological family after she graduated. Wan Wan was reluctant at the time, but Wenxin's words made her whole. Do you still want to fight your two younger brothers for the family fortune? Although Wan Wan knew that Wenxin had said that on purpose, she had to agree after those words had been spoken. Regarding the issue of Wan Yu, Wenxin was very calm. She was a good example of someone who believed in love for 20 years, and what did she get in the end? It was better to sleep with Wan Yu once and get more than what you could get from love. Now she felt that women who believe in love are all fools, and only what you really get is the most real. Her mentality is very similar to Wan Yu's. They are both people who don't really believe in love. As for how the two got together, they had a child, and Wenxin definitely won't give up the child, and Wan Yu won't give up either. After the two got together, Wenxin got a huge benefit, and it's even more impossible for her to give up. For now, she wants the child, and she also wants Wang Yu. As for the relationship between the two, it's very complicated, and even they themselves are not sure. There is definitely some love, but how much is hard to say. Chapter 175, What is Love, Anyway? Sun Qian also had a moment of heart palpitations after being rescued by Wang Yu. She used to be uninterested in marriage, but as she grew older and her family urged her to settle down, she knew she couldn't keep saying she had no interest. But she was at an awkward age, and the men who could look at her would definitely not be attracted to her as a person. There would certainly be no shortage of young and pretty girls around her that she could look at. Plus, she was brought up by those people from the Sun family, so this kind of thing is commonplace. When she first met Wang Yu, Sun Qian didn't even take him seriously. If it weren't for her physical problems, the two of them would have probably only met that once in their lives. After that, things just happened naturally. Sun Qian, who had never been in a relationship, was pushed by Wang Yu for more than half an hour, and then she was tricked by her three brothers and coincidentally slept in the same bed. Although nothing happened at that time, she was really moved. After all, which woman doesn't like an outstanding man? Later, with the help of Sun Chusheng, Sun Qian, who had a fiery personality, finally made up her mind and was willing to trick Yuan into it. Wang Yu also behaved very normally and accepted everything without any hesitation. Afterwards, as the two got to know each other better, Wang Yu's feelings for Sun Qian grew deeper and deeper. It can be considered a model of falling in love after having sex. The two girls, Yuan and Tian Tian, have similar personalities and are not much different in age. Wang Yu dotes on them and spoils them, of course mostly with the kind of petty thoughts that men have. The two girls are sincere towards Wang Yu, and who among 20-year-old girls doesn't have a sweet love dream? Think of those girls who run to their idol's concert in a wedding dress. Don't they know that their chances of even getting a glance from their idol are slim? Some of these girls already have boyfriends, and some are even at the stage of talking about marriage and getting married, but they still do this in groups. What is the point of this, and what are they thinking? It is hard to say. The author has suffered in this regard and has said a lot of nonsense. Apologies. Go back to the main text. Wang Yu didn't know how to answer Wen's warm question. The education he had received since childhood was in huge conflict with his own desires. There were things that he knew were wrong, but there were always people who couldn't help but think about them. The reason was simple: the temptation was too great. Let's talk about this on that day. I can't give you an answer right now. Wang Yu thought about it for a moment, and he was quite sincere. Nothing he said now would be right, so he might as well wait until that day to talk about it. After all, the initiative was in Wan Wan's hands. There had been many years, and there had been more than just him. Who knew what it would be like at that time? Go to sleep. Wang Yu kissed Wenxin's forehead gently, adjusted his position a little, and let her lie more comfortably in his arms. At this time, Wang Yu's phone suddenly rang, and the beautiful atmosphere was instantly ruined. He checked his phone. Su Mu. Wang Yu was startled, but he didn't dare not to answer. Who knows if it's about the hospital? He looked at Wenxin apologetically and was about to go out to answer the phone. Just answer it here, Wenxin said softly, holding back Wang Yu, who was about to get up. If I answer it here, what if the beautiful doctor says something outrageous? Will I be able to sleep well tonight? Looking at Wenxin's calm eyes, Wang Yu didn't dare to refuse. After all, the plan was to talk to her about this tonight, so he picked up the phone. Wang Yu, you bastard, you kissed and touched her today, don't you want to take responsibility? As soon as it was connected, there was Su Mu's yelling. Then there was a messy sound, and Wang Yu turned his back, afraid to look into Wenxin's eyes. At this time, a warm little hand was already gently stroking the soft flesh of his waist. Hey, I'm sorry, Mumu is drunk too much. Wang Yu could still distinguish the voice of the beautiful policewoman, and replied with a forced calm. Is everything okay? Do you need me to come over and help? Busy. With great difficulty, Wang Yu finished speaking, as he was holding back the sudden sharp pain. No, we're just drinking at Mumu's place, I'll take care of her later. After saying this, Nan Nan hung up the phone. At this time, the atmosphere in the bedroom was not so friendly. Wenxin sat up with an expression of inexpressible playfulness on her face, her bright eyes surveying Wang Yu before she opened her mouth. Seeing this made him feel uneasy, and after a moment of silence, he couldn't help but ask. Wife, don't you have anything you want to ask? No, I'm waiting for you to take the initiative. Wenxin yanked the quilt off Wang Yu and then stuck out a small, snow-white foot, ready to kick him off. Listen, honey, I was going to tell you about this tonight, but it's late and I didn't want to keep you up. I was going to tell you in the morning. Tell me, or get out. Wenxin glared at him, but of course that was just to scare Wang Yu. Su Mu's name had already been written in the little notebook by the three women. Wenxin had met Su Mu once before and was quite impressed. She thought she was quite pretty and had got to know her personality a little from Tian Tian. If there were no other problems, she would be very happy to have Su Mu join the team. After all, Wang Yu was really a donkey these days. Not only could he not handle the workload with so few people, but it was also affecting his health. In fact, Mumu has been pursuing me for many days. I promise I started out by refusing. Then why did people say you touched her and kissed her but denied it? Listen to me, honey, it's not what you think. This morning, Mumu asked me to teach her massage techniques. I thought we were friends, and our relationship was pretty good, so I taught her a few tricks. After Mumu learned them, she practiced on me right away. Keep talking. You know, at the moment, my body can't really resist temptation, so... Wang Yu paused here, then continued. But I promise, I kept my innocence until the end, really. She even called me worse than an animal. Wenxin didn't expect this guy to be so honest, and wanted to see what he thought. So what are you going to do? Wang Yu was honest this time, saying whatever came to mind. I don't know, I was thinking of coming back and asking your opinion. Ha! Wenxin snorted in annoyance and laughed. Then Mumu said to let her and I get married, and I ran away without saying yes. Wang Yu told Wenxin everything that had happened that morning. Wenxin felt very uncomfortable listening to it. She wondered if the first person to get a marriage certificate would be her mother. If you get a marriage certificate, how will my son's household registration be done? That little girl really dares to think. Give me her phone number. I'll go talk to her tomorrow. Now go to sleep. Wife, you're not angry. After sending Su Mu's phone number to Wenxin, Wang Yu asked softly as he looked at Wenxin, who had an expressionless face. Go to sleep. I'll tell you if you're angry or not tomorrow. Wenxin, who had leaned back in the quilt, turned her body to face Wang Yu, closed her eyes and said nothing. What do you mean? Wang Yu, who was at a loss for an answer, tentatively put his arm around Wenxin. When he saw that she was not resisting, his heart immediately felt much more at ease. As for what Wenxin and Sumu would talk about tomorrow, did it really matter? In his experience, in the end, he would definitely come out on top. This is settled, and good times are coming for me. Tomorrow, I'll go and get a few more rental contracts. Chapter 176 Lu Baoqiang's Little Abacus. Early the next morning, Ma Rongrong and Lu Baoqiang arrived at the hospital together, just in time to bump into Wang Yu, who was rushing to work. Lu Baoqiang had never met Wang Yu a few times and had not noticed him, but Wang Yu knew this arrogant man. Watching this guy walk towards the ward with a young woman, he felt disdainful. This family really doesn't have a good one, the two old ones are so unkempt, no wonder they can give birth to a child like Chen Yuding who is not a plaything. Should I tell old Chen that this guy wants a daughter, and if he hooks up with Lu Baoqiang's woman, I'll help him have triplets? Old Chen will be so happy, he'll fly with joy. Once the kids are born, he'll take 3 paternity tests, and Lu Baoqiang, who is happily awaiting the birth of his children, will probably be so angry that he'll die. Wang Yu's thinking has been somewhat influenced by Chen Chusheng, and the methods of revenge she has come up with are gradually deviating from the mainstream. Ma Rongrong felt someone looking at her, and immediately turned her head to find a tall, handsome man, and couldn't help but want to give a smile. But then she immediately thought that she was at work, and immediately turned her head back again, muttering to herself that making money was more important than men, and she recovered her composure after repeating this 3 times in silence. When Ma Rongrong contacted Lu Baoqiang last night, she didn't think it was a big deal. After all, a woman at Li Yuzhen's age was far inferior to herself. After a whole day of adjustment, Lu Baoqiang's mentality had also recovered a bit. After the two agreed on a place, Lao Lu left Li Yuzhen and rushed over. But what Ma Rongrong didn't expect was that as soon as Lu Baoqiang met her, he slapped her, and before she could react, he immediately followed it up with a few more slaps. My Nima! Ma Rongrong immediately exploded with anger. If she hadn't been thinking about the 10 million Chen Chusheng had given her, she would have probably stormed off on the spot. Lu was getting on in years, and after a few blows, he had lost much of his strength. But he still glared fiercely at Ma Rongrong, wishing he could tear her apart. His son was gone, and although it was all his fault for cheating on her, Lu would not punish himself. He took out his anger on Ma Rongrong. The purpose of this meeting was for Lu to vent his anger, and the other thought was to get back a little of his 300,000 yuan. In line with the principle of saving as much as possible, Lu certainly would not pity her. Ma Rongrong didn't know what Lao Lu was thinking, but she wasn't afraid of the situation. She just needed to take a few punches, and she had been punched a lot when she worked before. She immediately adjusted her mentality, put on a pitiful expression, sat down on the ground, and her beautiful eyes were filled with tears. Lu Baoqiang was an old hand, but he was also charmed by Ma Rongrong's professional and capable woman. For some reason, at this time, Lao Lu felt that Ma Rongrong was much more beautiful. Looking at her beautiful and weak appearance, his heart immediately softened. In fact, his feelings were correct. Ma Rongrong did look a little prettier, thanks to those big fights, which had ruined the subtle adjustments to her face and revealed some of her true beauty. At this time, if Ma Rongrong had removed her makeup and washed her face, Lao Lu would probably be smitten. The old man's heart softened, giving the professional a lot of room to play. In less than half an hour, the two were calling each other Rongrong and baby. As for Li Yuzhen, Lao Lu had long since forgotten about her. Since he had already lost his son, he might as well make the most of his remaining time and put in more effort with Ma Rongrong, who might conceivably bear him another child next month. Lao Lu's plan was ringing in his head, and Ma Rongrong's plan was also able to proceed. The two slept together that night, and the next day Ma Rongrong suggested they visit Li Yuzhen in the hospital. She said she wanted to apologize, and for whatever reason, Lu took her there. When they arrived at the hospital room, Li Yuzhen had already woken up. Seeing Lu Baoqiang and Ma Rongrong so close to each other, she almost fainted. Lu Baoqiang, do you feel guilty about what you did to me? Li Yuzhen's eyes were wide with anger as she screamed. Lu Baoqiang, feeling very guilty, lowered his head, his eyes avoiding Li Yuzhen's, afraid to make eye contact. This was the purpose of his bringing Ma Rongrong here. Since they already knew everything anyway, it was better to bring her here to divert the fire. The other 2 female patients in the ward were lying lifeless. Usually, when there is someone around, they will occasionally grunt a few times to express their identity as patients, which made the husband of the accompanying nurse look pale and nervous. Li Yuzhen's shout attracted their attention, and they immediately perked up. The 2 of them, who normally could not get up without assistance, sat up straight and even adjusted the angle of the backrest by rocking the lever themselves. I wonder how their husbands, who went out to get food, would feel when they returned and saw this scene. I guess they will marvel at how not only medicine, but also gossip can defeat illness. Ma Rongrong was not intimidated by Li Yuzhen's anger. This was a minor incident for her, not worth mentioning. Her purpose today was to make Li Yuzhen completely despair of Lu Baoqiang, and it would be best if the two got a divorce quickly, so that she could take advantage of the situation. What Ma Rongrong didn't know, however, was that Lu Baoqiang and Li Yuzhen had never married, and the pair of old lovebirds were living together illegally every day. Seeing Li Yuzhen trembling uncontrollably with anger, Ma Rongrong quickly stepped forward to help her calm down, but the anger just kept growing. As a result, Li Yuzhen couldn't catch her breath and fainted directly. Lu Baoxiang immediately became anxious when he saw this. He knew that although he was unfaithful, he had deep feelings for Li Yuzhen. He quickly called for a doctor, and Ma Rongrong took the opportunity to leave the hospital room and wait for Lu Baoxiang to come out in the hallway. Is Li Yuzhen really that hot-tempered? She fainted before she could even show her stuff. Looks like I went a bit too hard, I'll tone it down a bit. Half an hour later, after being resuscitated, Li Yuzhen woke up again. Lu Baoxiang didn't know what he said to her, but she was much calmer now. Ma Rongrong wanted to go in and annoy Li Yuzhen some more, but Lu Baoxiang stopped her, not giving her any room to maneuver. After waiting for another 10 minutes, Lu Baoxiang finally came out and said to Ma Rongrong, who was sitting in a chair, "I've discussed this with your sister-in-law. You helped me have children, so after we're gone, all of our property will be left to you and the children. You want to eat the shit out of having children for me? You don't even have 10 million yuan, and you want to wait until you're dead before leaving me anything. Ha, that's pretty nice of you to think that." I thought this in my heart, but Ma Rongrong's face showed a look of sudden joy and greed, and she acted like she was really excited to hear the good news. Really? Your sister-in-law really said that? Ma Rongrong took Lu Baoxiang's arm and held it directly. Well, we're getting old, and after your sister-in-law had a miscarriage, she can't have a child again. The Lu family can't be left without an heir. When he heard this, Lu Baoxiang couldn't help feeling lost. Why couldn't he just wait a year or so for the baby to be born before having sex again? Chapter 177 Wentong. Ma Rongrong was only allowed to go over and speak to Li Yuzhen after Lu Baoxiang had given her a lecture. Don't look at Lao Lu sowing his wild oats everywhere, but he is truly in love with Li Yuzhen, otherwise he wouldn't be so anxious about her body. And Ma Rongrong is quite professional at breaking up other people's families, otherwise she wouldn't have so readily agreed to Chen Chusheng's conditions. Lu Baoxiang and Li Yuzhen have invited the wolf into the house this time, and it is estimated that it will not take long before Ma Rongrong drives them apart. The other two female patients in the ward have had a big surprise today, and they are a little indigestive. At this moment, Wang Yu is organizing his thoughts, and he will not give up what he has decided to do. As for the lovely sweetie, she is still resting at home. Of course, she doesn't need to take any leave at all, because Wang Yu is her leader, and she will be considered to have perfect attendance even if she doesn't take any leave. Just as Wang Yu was writing furiously, a young girl with big waves of hair, red lips, and big earrings, wearing high heels of more than 10 centimeters, walked in with an arrogant look on her face. Hearing the sound, Wang Yu looked up and saw that the person was very unfamiliar and unknown. As for the appearance, the heavy makeup was similar to wearing a mask, so she couldn't tell. She had an appointment in the morning and had come in the afternoon. Hey, it's really inconvenient that Tian is not here, and someone actually came in without knocking. You must be Wang Yu. The smoky-eyed woman sat opposite Wang Yu, playing with a finger cudgel in her hands, in a manner befitting a socialite. Something the matter? Wang Yu put down his book and frowned. Well, there is something the matter. The smoky-eyed woman said, then put on the finger cudgel and punched Wang Yu. Judging from the speed and power of the punch, it was obvious that she had trained, and Wang Yu almost got hit without noticing. After avoiding the punch, Wang Yu was still not able to react, and the smoky woman swept a high roundhouse kick at his head. Damn it! Are you sick? Wang Yu thought to himself, and without any further ado, he reached out and grabbed the smoky woman's calf directly, and then with a little strength in his other hand, he disabled the smoky woman's hand that was wearing the finger tiger. Then he took another step forward, grabbed the calf with all his strength, and the smoky woman came directly into a standing split. Wang Yu was stunned, and thought to himself, what resilience. He thought to himself, I'll try it on Tian someday. The two were so close together that they could feel each other's exhaled breath. The smoky woman had dislocated one of her wrists, and now she was glaring at Wang Yu with pain in her eyes. Although she had been subdued, she had not lost her momentum. Let go of me, you scum. Wang Yu heard this, and the hand he was preparing to release tightened its grip, and the two of them almost came into contact with each other. Lady, do we know each other? What do you mean, you started fighting as soon as you came in? Do you want me to arrange an emergency brain department appointment for you? Get out. The smoky woman yelled angrily, opened her mouth and bit Wang Yu's shoulder. The woman supported her body with one leg, while the other leg was held in Wang Yu's hands. With one hand incapacitated and the other tightly controlled by Wang Yu, all she could do was attack with her mouth. Damn it! What should I do? I can't resist with my mouth. Wang Yu pressed her down hard onto the desk with both hands. No matter how flexible the smoky woman was, she couldn't help but lose her balance. She could only feel her entire body being stretched to the limit, and the sharp pain in her ligaments and wrists made her cry out involuntarily. Wang Yu leaned forward, using his body weight to hold back the struggling smoky woman. He was annoyed to the extreme. He was just reading a book when this crazy woman came over and started attacking him. Had he gone out today without checking the almanac? Who are you? Are you sick? Wang Yu's tone was impatient. After experiencing Chen Yuding's betrayal, this guy was not as patient with women as he used to be. However, he clearly underestimated the endurance of the smoky woman. Even though she was in this situation, she was still resisting with all her strength. Just as the two of them were entangled and would not stop, the door opened again. Wang Yu. A roar startled the two people who were entangled, and then they both turned their heads to look at the door at the same time. Sumu was supporting a pregnant Wen as they stood in the doorway, both of them staring in disbelief as Wang Yu pinned a woman down on the desk, grabbing one of her legs in one of her hands. This position had never been seen by Sumu before, nor had it been felt by Wen, and the two of them were clearly thinking other things at this moment. Holy cow! Seeing the change in the two people's faces, Wang Yu glanced at his current state and immediately knew that they had misunderstood. Don't get excited, honey. It's not what it looks like. Let me explain. With that, Wang Yu immediately let go of the smoky-looking woman and hurried towards Wen. As for Sumu, he couldn't care less at the moment. One Tong. After the smoky-looking woman, who had been let go by Wang Yu, stood up, Wen exclaimed another name. Wang Yu, who was about to explain, turned his head towards Wen Tong at the sound and, upon closer inspection, noticed that her features were very similar to Wen Xian's. She's your relative? Wang Yu asked incredulously, turning back. My younger sister. Wen Xian's words sent Wang Yu's heart plummeting to the bottom. What the hell is going on? How many people are there in the Wen family? More than the Huluchua kids. Since she is his wife's younger sister, Wang Yu felt that it was very reasonable and logical for her to come over and beat him up. After all, the things he has done are too numerous to mention in a single sentence. Once again, he turned around and walked over to Wen Tong's side, preparing to help her reset her wrist. Wen Tong had been silent since Wen Xian called her name, just staring blankly at her sister's big belly with extremely mixed emotions. She reacted only when Wang Yu grabbed her wrist, instinctively trying to resist, but the pain interrupted her. Sister. I'm sorry, your wrist is fixed. Wang Yu said awkwardly after letting go of Wen Tong's wrist. Humph. Wen Tong obviously didn't like Wang Yu's way of addressing her, but she didn't dare to do anything again when she was looked at by Wen Xian. Sister Wen, why don't you two talk first? I'll come back later. Sumu at the door felt that it was inappropriate for him to stay here at this time. Knowing that the person who was pushed down on the desk by Wang Yu was actually his sister-in-law, this matter was very complicated, so let them solve it themselves. After saying that, Sumu helped Wen Xian sit down on a chair beside him, then glared at Wang Yu fiercely before turning around and leaving. After Wenxin sat down, she felt her brain ache again. Recently, her relatives have been going to Shuzhou for no reason, and after they arrive, they always like to go find Wang Yu. Tell me, when did you two start? Wenxin rubbed her temples and started to ask helplessly. No, it's a misunderstanding, honey, I don't even know who she is. Wang Yu immediately explained when he heard Wenxin's words. You don't know each other and you're holding each other down on the table. Wenxin obviously didn't believe Wang Yu's explanation. If the two of them hadn't been wearing clothes just now, she would have thought they were already having a passionate fight together. Chapter 178, Wang Yu becomes a gigolo. Wen Xian's distrust made Wang Yu feel helpless. How could he explain this? Should he say that the two of them were fighting with each other? Neither of them was holding the other's leg, and they were both on the table. Wen Tong was also about to explain, but when she saw Wang Yu scratching his head, she immediately bowed her head and obediently stood in the same place without saying a word. Wang Yu, who was in a hurry, suddenly remembered something and immediately said happily. Honey, we really don't know each other. Wait a second, I have a surveillance camera installed here. Just play it back and you'll see. In Wang Yu's clinic, apart from his own restroom and ward, there were two cameras installed, one at the entrance to the office and the other at the entrance to the ward. The surveillance system was on his own computer. The main purpose was to prevent some patients from being able to save some evidence after a dispute with the doctor. At the time, Wang Yu felt that it was unnecessary, but now he was very grateful to Dean Han for his foresight. Not long after the incident, Wang Yu was able to find the time period by accessing the system. "My dear, come and have a look and you'll understand. I was really wronged." With these words, Wang Yu went over to help Wen Xin. Wen Tong saw that Wen Xin was really pregnant and came over to check it out. She also helped her pull out a chair and whispered, "Sister." Wen Xin touched her sister's big belly, sighed inwardly, and then sat down. The atmosphere in the office suddenly became quiet. Wen cared for her younger sister very much, and the two were very similar in status. They were both illegitimate daughters of the Wen family, but the difference was that her father was the head of the Wen family, while Wen Tong's father was the third uncle. The two had not had much contact in the past, and Wen was almost 20 years older than Wen Tong. The first time she met Wen Tong, Wen was already the chairman of the Wen group. Although she was an illegitimate daughter, her status in the Wen family in Kyoto was higher than that of the legitimate children, and if she was willing, she could even enter the decision-making level of the Wen family in Kyoto. However, Wen Xin was not interested in any of this. Her mother's death had already bound her to her father and the Wen family. Although she had not thought about taking revenge on the Wen family and her father over the years, Wen Xin also did not want to have too much contact with them. Wen Tong was only a teenager when she returned to the Wen family, and due to her status as an illegitimate daughter, she was inevitably bullied by other people her age. At first she would go to her mother, but obviously it was useless, and her father, Wen Xingyu, was often out of sight for months at a time. In this way, she lived in the Wen family for more than a year, and Wen Tong was also bullied for more than a year. In her opinion, there was no good person in the Wen family. Until she was 18 years old, Wen Tong secretly bought a birthday cake to celebrate her birthday, but somehow it was discovered by her brothers, sisters, and younger siblings. The consequence was that she didn't get to eat a single bite of the cake, and it was all smashed on her body. Her own mother hid in the house and watched silently, afraid to come out and stand up for her. At that time, Wen Tong's heart died. Just as she was about to go up and fight with these people regardless of the consequences, Wen Xin appeared. She stopped the Wen family children who were bullying her, and warned them not to bully her in the future. Then Wen Xin took Wen Tong to take a shower, bought her new clothes, and bought a big cake. The two of them celebrated her birthday at Wen Xin's place. In the evening, Wen Xin slept with her in her arms, and Wen Tong felt the love she had not felt for a long time. From that time on, she silently regarded this older sister, who was more than 20 years her senior, as her mother. After Wen Xin left Kyoto, she left Wen Tong the key to her house, so that she would have a place to live alone after leaving the Wen family. Later, Wen Xin came to Kyoto a few times and gave Wen Tong small gifts. These careless acts of care were quietly remembered by Wen Tong. These were all small things for Wen Xin, and helping Wen Tong was just a coincidence. She couldn't stand seeing those kids bully people. After that, after learning about Wen Tong's identity, she felt a sense of empathy for her. What Wen Xin didn't expect, however, was that after she warned them once, the kids in the Wen family never bullied Wen Tong again. A few of them took the initiative to get in touch with Wen Tong and told her a lot of stories about Wen Xin. Similar identities, different lives, Wen Xin has lived up to the way Wen Tong envies, and has also become the eldest sister admired by most of the children in the Wen family. In short, Wen Xin is no longer in the Wen family, but the family has always had legends about her. At present, many of the younger generation in the Wen family regard her as their idol. Wen Tong came to Shudu City this time to find out some things about Wen Xin. After asking around, she found out Wang Yu's name and also learned some things. However, most of these things have been tampered with, and the Wang Yu in the story is Wen Xin's gigolo. This little white face also hid the mistress Wen Xin was supporting outside. Hearing this, Wen Tong was so angry that she didn't even pack her luggage and went directly to Shudu City. As for the rumors that Wen Xin was pregnant, Wen Tong didn't believe a word of it. In her heart, there was no man in the world who was worthy of her eldest sister. However, it seems that rumors really do harm people. The legendary little white face is actually so good at fighting. You have to know that she has been taught free fighting skills by professionals. And these fighting skills have allowed her to clean up many people with bad intentions in bars, KTV, and other places over the years. Looking at Wang Yu, who was giving Wen Xin a massage, Wen Tong couldn't help but curse in her heart. This is the smooth-talking gigolo they were talking about. Looking at Wen Xin's big belly, Wen Tong felt bad for the whole person. She really wanted it to be like what was shown on TV, with a big pillow stuffed inside. But she knew that was impossible. Her eldest sister was really pregnant, and it looked like the two had a good relationship. Tong, tell me, what's going on? Wen asked calmly after watching the video. She still had a strong impression of her younger cousin. She liked the girl's tough eyes and stubborn temperament. Although they hadn't met often, she had a deep impression of her. Big sister, I heard that you were cheated by a gigolo, both in terms of money and sex, so. That's why you came here to beat up my husband? Wen knew the reason as soon as Tong opened her mouth, and she also knew that her younger sister would do something like this. Wait. Could it be that the little white face is talking about me? What do I look like, a little white face, and cheat on money and sex? Wang Yu pointed at his nose and asked angrily. The two sisters heard Wang Yu's words and looked back at him with a look of indignation. When Tong lowered her head, and when Xin couldn't help laughing out loud. Don't you say a word, just stay honest. After stopping her laughter, when Xin glared at Wang Yu, and then looked carefully at Wen Tong's outfit, her face immediately turning black. What happened to your hair and face? And why didn't Lai Su City call me? I was at the bar, and after hearing about it, I came directly that night. I didn't have time to change, I didn't bring any luggage, and my phone ran out of battery. Wen Tong said in a low voice. Facing Wen Xin, she felt a lot of pressure. Although she was the older sister, in her heart she was like a mother. At this time, Wen Xin's questioning made her feel like a little girl who had done something bad and was caught by her mother and criticized. Chapter 179, Something bad will happen if you meet your third brother. Seeing Wen Tong's expression, Wen Xin couldn't bear to blame her. After all, she was touched by the fact that she had heard the news that she had suffered and had rushed over directly that night. Sigh. Wen Xin sighed, pulled Wen Tong over, took out a wet wipe from her bag, and helped her wipe off the smoky makeup on her face. You're a big girl, don't go to those kinds of places in the future, look at what you look like now. Wen Tong stood motionless as Wen Xin scolded her while wiping her face. The long-lost care she received made her unable to hold back her tears. You're still crying after I scolded you a little. After Wen Xin finished wiping her face, she pinched Wen Tong's face and looked at her carefully. She was quite a pretty young girl, much more pleasing to the eye than before. Wang Yu, on the other hand, was secretly amazed. Just now, this girl was able to hold back even when her wrists were removed, but now she was actually made to cry by a few words from his wife. My wife is amazing. Looking at Wen Tong after removing her makeup, she really looked much better than before, but the combination of her face and the big waves in her hair just didn't seem to work. Let's go, first let's go buy some clothes and household goods, since we're here, we might as well stay for a few days. Wen Xin said this and stood up, ready to leave with Wen Tong. Wife, didn't you forget something? Wang Yu had ignored Sumu before, but it wasn't because he had forgotten about what happened last night, the two of them had obviously talked when they came over just now. Seeing Wen Xin getting ready to leave, he immediately reminded her, after all, this matter related to what attitude he would face Sumu in the future. Let's talk about it tonight when we get home, just go to work. Wen Xin couldn't care about Wang Yu's matter at the moment, she also wanted to ask Wen Tong, what exactly was the Wen family gossiping about her behind her back? After sending the two to the parking lot, Wang Yu saw Wen driving, with Sun Qian and Tian inside, seemingly waiting for Wen Xin. When the women saw him coming, none of them greeted him. Wen Xin and Wen Tong got into the car, and Wen handed him a slightly apologetic smile. When Tian walked past him, she made a face, while Sun Qian gave him a look of adoration. Then Wen hit the accelerator, sending up a cloud of dust, and disappeared at high speed in Wang Yu's astonished gaze. What was that all about? All four of them had come to the hospital today, so why did Wen Xin go looking for him? Wang Yu couldn't figure it out after thinking for a while, and immediately turned around to go to the cafeteria to eat. As soon as he walked through the hospital gate, he encountered Sumu, who was waiting for him, standing there with his arms folded. Mumu, what are you doing here, do you want to eat together? Wang Yu greeted him with a smile on his face. Yes. After Sumu finished speaking, he walked directly over and naturally took Wang Yu's arm. Wang Yu, whose head was lowered and unable to see the obstacles in his way, immediately thought of the tempting feel of the hand yesterday morning. With great difficulty, Wang Yu twitched a few times, but his arm was stuck and he gave up immediately. Where are we going to eat? I'll treat you. Wang Yu, who had wanted to go to the hospital cafeteria, felt that it was better to be careful and wanted to take Sumu out to eat. However, it was obvious that Sumu didn't want to, and he pulled Wang Yu straight to the cafeteria, saying as they walked, "Let's eat in the cafeteria, it will save time, and then you can teach me some more massage techniques." What the hell is massage? If you massage me again, I guarantee you won't be able to stand up from this afternoon until tomorrow morning. Wang Yu thought this to himself, but didn't dare to say it out loud. The two of them went to the cafeteria together, and the doctors and nurses on the way paid them attention, and then began to whisper. The male god and goddess of the hospital once again appeared so intimately and openly in public, which is nothing but an official announcement. Wang Yu really felt like a thorn in his back during this meal. He could see envy and jealousy in everyone's eyes when he looked up. They finished eating quickly, grabbed Sumu and disappeared into the cafeteria, leaving behind a buzz of discussion. Before they reached their consultation room, they ran into Sun Dishing again. Wang Yu felt a sharp pain and grabbed Sumu's hand, preparing to take a detour. Before they had taken a few steps, a familiar voice came over. Brother-in-law. Hearing this, Wang Yu's body tensed and she stood still. This is it, this guy definitely means trouble. In less than an hour, everyone who should know and everyone who shouldn't will probably know about me and Sumu. The problem is that I can't explain it clearly. Thinking about San Ji's big mouth, Wang Yu wanted to practice his bone-setting skills on him. Hello Sun Don. Sumu looked at Sun Dishing as he walked over, greeted him with a graceful smile, and grabbed Wang Yu's hand, which was about to let go, with a little force. San Gu, what's up? Wang Yu suppressed the urge to run away and turned around and asked. After all, it was indeed quite embarrassing to be caught by his cousin while holding hands with another girl. Sun Dishing's eyes lit up when he looked at the two of them, and the fire of gossip was burning fiercely. He didn't really care about Wang Yu picking up girls. After all, he wasn't some innocent guy. Recently, this guy had a girlfriend again, and they were currently having a hot time together. He was also thinking about asking Wang Yu to give him a massage sometime in the future, so why would he go and accuse him at this time? We are all in the same boat, we can't just allow the officials to do whatever they want and forbid the common people to do anything, right? Seeing that Sun Dishing was approaching, Sumu let go of Wang Yu's hand and said, You guys chat, I'll wait for you in the office. After saying that, he politely smiled at the two of them and left. Looking at Sumu's back, Sun Dishing couldn't help but praise. Brother-in-law has good taste and good tactics. The eldest Miss Su was actually taken down by an E.G. You've got both wealth and sex. If you have something to say, brother Sun, say it. If not, I'll be going. Since he had been seen, Wang Yu didn't bother to hide or explain anything. Since there's nothing else, Big Brother has an appointment with Chen Chusheng this afternoon, and Lao Su came over to discuss things. I guess you'll be notified to go over there, so I thought I'd stop by since I'm not busy. Big Brother's actions are really fast. Before I could finish the paperwork on my end, they started making preparations. It's true that these people are very motivated to make money. I won't go in the afternoon. Just let my brother know for me. The one group has agreed that the Maria Hospital will be transferred to my name. You can discuss the shares at that time. Wang Yu didn't really care about these material things at this time. When money reaches a certain level, how can you say it? You really can't spend it all. Get it done my ass, it was bought for 3 billion. Wang Yu didn't want to be misunderstood as a gold digger, so he immediately explained, but didn't say that the money was for his son. Hey! We're all people under the same blanket, 3 billion is not much, just go to Diffuse Place and get some medicine to tone up your body. Sun Dishing waved his hand and said nonchalantly. This motherfucker. Do you mean the same thing when you say billion? Brother Sun, taking too much of this medicine is bad for your health, and it's not going to help your brother anyway. Whether it's 3 billion or 30 billion, I'm fine with it. I'm leaving now. After saying this, Wang Yu didn't let Sun Dishing respond, and he simply slipped away. Hey, brother-in-law. Sun Dishing still had a lot of questions he wanted to ask, but after calling out a few times, Wang Yu didn't turn around. Unable to help himself, Sun Dishing reached into his pocket with his right hand and took out his phone. After a few fiddles, he found the number of Lao Su and hesitated whether or not to dial it. He hesitated whether to dial the number, but then thought that after all, the person's father had the right to know, so he immediately dialed the number. Chapter 180, Misunderstanding. When Sun Jing received the call from Sun Dishing, he was driving attentively. Over this period of time, he had frequent contact with the third son of the Sun family, and the two got along quite well. Apart from having different tastes in alcohol, they could talk about many things and had a good time. Hey, little brother, what's up? Sun Jing asked, holding the steering wheel in one hand and the phone in the other. Sun Dishing on the other end of the line suddenly became hesitant. Su, there's something. I don't know if I should tell you. Sunny Sin was instantly intrigued. Hey, man, that's not like you. Just spit it out, I'm busy driving here. Sun Dishing's hesitation made Sun Eason curious. He had a hunch that the guy had dug up some juicy gossip. You know, normally Sun Dishing is a straightforward person, but now he is so hesitant, it must be something very important. Thinking about this, Suning is even more eager to know what happened. At this time, Sun Dishing is also very conflicted. After all, Suning only has one precious daughter, and during their previous casual conversations, he had mentioned the need to find a son-in-law to take over the family business. But under the current circumstances, I'm afraid Lao Su's wishful thinking is going to fall through. How should I put it? Sun Dishing stammered, and after repeating himself several times, Suning couldn't help but become impatient. Just say what you want to say. Get to the point. He snapped. Your daughter is looking for a man. Sun Dishing gritted his teeth and simply blurted out what was on his mind. After all, he was a man who couldn't hide anything, especially not something so big. What? Really? Sun Yunjing was instantly overwhelmed with emotion. You see, his daughter was almost 30 years old, and she had never had a boyfriend, which had made him very anxious. Now, suddenly hearing such news, how could he not be excited? It's absolutely true. I saw it with my own eyes. Sun Dishing saw this and hurriedly patted his chest to reassure him. So what does he look like? Is he a good match for my daughter? Sun Yunjing asked anxiously, his heart already flying to his daughter. Sun Yongning pulled over to the side of the road and prepared to ask around. If the guy was good-looking, the child they had together would definitely be very good-looking. He was tall and handsome, and would be a good match for your daughter. My sister Sun Disheng must be good-looking, otherwise my younger sister wouldn't be rushing to marry him. Brother, thanks for this piece of news. My daughter doesn't tell me anything anymore when she's grown up. Sun Yongning's hearty laughter came over the phone, making Sun Disheng feel a little guilty. Brother, this young man really has no flaws. Not only is he good-looking, he's also top-notch in every way. However, he does have one small flaw. I'm not sure if you'll be able to accept it. The speaker sounded hesitant, as if he was considering whether or not to reveal the flaw. Suning's heart leapt at this, and he hurriedly asked, what flaw? Could it be missing limbs? Suning's focus had always been on the physical appearance of his daughter's future husband. After all, it was related to his daughter's future happiness. That's not it. This young man is very strong and healthy, stronger than an ox. Sun Disheng hurriedly explained. Hearing this, Sun Yuming was slightly relieved, but his doubts deepened. He asked, so what exactly is the flaw? Don't keep me in suspense, just tell me. Sun Disheng gritted his teeth, as if making a great resolution, and finally confessed, alas, brother, in fact, this person is quite good in other aspects, it's just that, he is my brother-in-law. I don't know if you can accept this fact? Suning was stunned when he heard this. He never expected that this seemingly perfect son-in-law would have such a status. For a moment, he was in deep thought, not knowing how to respond to this sudden situation. Your brother-in-law? Wang Yu. Suning felt that he had heard it wrong. Was Sun Disheng sick? His own brother-in-law was looking for a woman and he had been caught red-handed, but he was still so calm. Well. Having said that, Sun Disheng felt very relieved at the moment. You saw it with your own eyes? Suning's temper immediately flared up. Well. Sun Disheng's thinking was obviously different from Suning's, and he hadn't figured it out yet. You called me to tell me this? Well. Sun Disheng gave 3 consecutive wells, which made Suning's mind explode. The solution is so simple. He and his brother get along quite well, so what's the problem? Suning couldn't help but start questioning. Hey, brother, why think so much? As long as little sister is willing, this is not a problem. Sun Disheng felt that Suning's thinking was too outdated, and he gave him another bombshell. Shit. Su directly exploded with vulgar language, then said sternly. No, absolutely not. Where are they now? They're at the hospital. Don't get worked up, brother. Sun Disheng felt that something was amiss, and he was regretting his meddling. If only he had known to wait and not say anything until Sumu was pregnant. Don't worry, I definitely won't get worked up. After Suning finished speaking, he hung up the phone directly and headed straight for Shiguan Hospital at full throttle. On this side, Wang Yu was still teaching Sumu the techniques of massage. The methods he had compiled himself really needed to be learned by someone trustworthy. After the branch hospital opened, Sumu could help train new people himself. In the morning, Wenxin and Sumu had a lot of conversations, but unfortunately Sumu had always insisted on his own ideas. However, the two of them did not argue. Sumu also helped Wenxin with her prenatal checkup, and looking at the two children on the ultrasound, he was very envious. Just as the two were seriously studying massage techniques, a loud knocking sound came from the door. Wang Yu. Where's my daughter? The loud voice of Su Ning interrupted Sumu's thoughts. Su Don, Mumu is inside. At this moment, Wang Yu really wished he could find a piece of tofu and headbutt himself. He never imagined that he would be visited by someone's father. Just then, there was a creaking sound, and the door was pushed open. Sumu walked out expressionlessly, softly calling out, "Dad." Immediately afterwards, her gaze fell on Sunda, who was standing outside the door. As soon as Su's father saw his daughter come out of the room, he could no longer hold back his doubts and blurted out, "What were you two doing in there? You weren't doing something naughty, were you?" At this thought, Su's father's face turned very ugly. Before Wang Yu could reply, Sumu jumped in and said, "Dad, don't get the wrong idea, brother Yu is teaching me massage techniques." Hearing this, Wang Yu let out a silent sigh of relief. Fortunately, Sumu reacted quickly, otherwise he would have been in deep trouble today. However, Su's father obviously did not believe their story. He frowned and angrily said, "Massage? Who are you trying to fool?" Sun Dishing, on the other hand, stood to the side and secretly gave Wang Yu a thumbs up in appreciation.